99,999 years of silence, and the first sound Cheon Muak hears is a god screaming. The noise tears through the abyssal sepulchre, rattling chains forged from divine commandments and shaking dust from a ceiling no mortal has ever seen. At the center of that impossible prison, a man sits upright inside a coffin made from 9 overlapping suns. His robes have rotted into strips, his flesh looks almost mummified, and 8 colossal spears remain buried through his chest. Still, the smile on his face is absolutely terrifying. See, Cheon Muak is not some forgotten prisoner begging for freedom. He is the most feared dark sorcerer in recorded history, the Necromancer who marches into the 9 heavens alone, slaughters 12 million celestial soldiers, and nearly drags the gods themselves into his army. They cannot kill him, so they erase his name, bury his body beneath the laws of creation, and command the entire world to forget he ever existed. Honestly, that plan sounds flawless. It is not. Another scream echoes through the prison. This one comes from beyond the sealed doors. Muak slowly opens his eyes. There is no light inside them. Only 2 thin circles of silver rotate around bottomless black pupils, each ring covered in necromantic formulas too old for the current universe to recognize. The dark sorcerer raises one finger. The chains immediately tighten. Divine letters flare across their surfaces. Sinner must remain still. Sinner must remain nameless. Sinner must remain dead. His finger stops. Not because the chains overpower him, because our necromancer is listening. Footsteps approach from the outer corridor. Several people are breathing hard, and someone keeps whispering a prayer to the 9th god. Metal scrapes against stone. A hammer strikes one of the sealed doors. Muak tilts his head. Mortals. That alone is strange. The abyssal sepulchre exists outside the mortal cycle, beneath the graveyard where dead worlds are discarded. No living person should be able to reach it. Even the gods once needed to sacrifice 3 divine beasts just to open the entrance. Yet the hammer strikes again. A crack spreads across the door. The prison trembles. Something tiny crawls from beneath Muak's collarbone. It resembles a moth made from 2 splinters of black bone. One wing is missing. Its body carries a single glowing symbol, the final surviving fragment of the name the gods erased. The creature tries to fly. It immediately tumbles onto his knee. Cheon Muak looks down at it. The little thing shakes, drags itself upright, and produces a sound barely louder than dust sliding across stone. Mu. That is all it can say. 1 syllable, 1 piece of a dead name. Our guy gently places the creature on his shoulder. The gods destroy every monument, manuscript, bloodline record, and memory connected to Cheon Muak. They even rip his name from the river of reincarnation so no soul can speak it in another life. But they miss one thing. His own corpse remembers. Over countless millennia, that memory gathers inside a fragment of bone, feeding on the silence until it becomes this miserable little moth. Weak, incomplete, and completely outside divine law. Muak's smile widens. Still here, the bone moth flutters its remaining wing. Mew. The outer door explodes inward. A wave of golden light floods the corridor, revealing 7 tomb raiders in white ceremonial armor. Each one carries a weapon marked with the 9-pointed halo of the Celestial Synod, the religious empire now ruling most of the mortal continent. At their center stands a young priest with long blue hair and a crystal eye implanted in his forehead. Meet High Examiner Seon Jaryok, the youngest grave diviner in the Synod and the man arrogant enough to believe this prison contains nothing more dangerous than ancient treasure. He raises a lantern filled with liquid sunlight. The flame inside bends toward Muak's coffin. Jaryok's expression changes. There is something alive in there. The soldiers stop. One of them laughs nervously. That is impossible. The divine record identifies this place as an empty punishment vault. Then the divine record is wrong. Now that is a sentence no priest should say inside a god-made prison. The chains around Muak's arms loosen by half an inch. Our dark sorcerer notices immediately. The laws sealing him are not weakening naturally. Someone has edited them. A mortal hand is stripping divine inscriptions from the outer chambers, probably to sell the fragments as relics. These thieves are not breaking him out on purpose. They are dismantling his cage for profit. Talk about an embarrassingly mortal ending to the god's grand masterpiece. Jaryok signals to 2 soldiers. They approach the coffin. The first presses a sun-marked chisel against its surface. The second lifts a hammer blessed by the Temple of Radiant Judgment. Muak studies them without moving. Their armor channels borrowed divinity through channels near the spine. Their hearts contain small branded seals. Their weapons draw power from a distant altar rather than their own bodies. The system of the current age becomes clear in seconds. Humanity no longer cultivates personal power. They rent miracles from the gods. The hammer falls. A corner of the first sun coffin shatters. The entire sepulchre groans. Black vapor leaks through the fracture. The soldier holding the chisel inhales once. His body freezes. Frost races across his veins, but the ice is not cold. It is the physical shape of death entering his blood. He falls backward. Before his corpse touches the floor, the interface behind Muak's eyes stirs for the first time in almost 100,000 years, and an unregistered soul has entered the nameless domain, divine ownership severed, resurrection authority available. The readout vanishes as quickly as it appears. Cheon Muak's expression remains calm. The soldier's corpse rises. Everyone in the corridor panics at once. The dead man twists upright with his head hanging at an unnatural angle. Golden symbols flicker beneath his skin, then turn completely black. He grabs the second soldier by the throat and slams him into the broken coffin. One strike. The man's helmet caves in. Jaryuk stumbles back. Purify him. 3 soldiers thrust their spears forward. Columns of sunlight blast through the undead raider, burning holes in his chest and severing one arm. The corpse keeps moving. It tears a spear from its own stomach and drives the weapon through another soldier's thigh. Absolute chaos erupts. Muak watches every movement. His reserves are nearly empty. His body has been pinned beneath divine suppression for so long that even lifting a hand tears open ancient wounds. The corpse under his control is weak, clumsy, and already collapsing. But the gods make one catastrophic mistake when they erase him. Divine restrictions require identity. A law must know what it is punishing. A curse must know whom it is targeting. Cheon Muak no longer possesses a recognized name, soul signature, fate thread, or historical existence. The prison still contains him. It simply cannot understand what he is anymore. The bone moth crawls onto his cheek. Its tiny symbol glows. Mew. A second syllable tries to form but breaks into a dry click. The necromancer raises his hand again. This time, the chains react a heartbeat too late. His fingers close around one of the divine spears, impaling his chest. Pain floods his body. The weapon carries the authority of the third god, Lord of Sacred Flame. Even after all this time, the spear continues burning his bones from within. Our hero pulls anyway. The spear slides out by the width of a fingernail. The entire prison convulses. Outside the coffin, Jaryuk finally notices him moving. The young priest's crystal eye expands. A divine identification spell sweeps over Muak. It finds no race. No age, no name, no rank, no blessing, nothing. Jaryuk's face turns pale. What are you? Cheon Muak looks at him through the fracture. The examiner receives no answer. Instead, the dead soldier abruptly stops fighting. His remaining hand opens. A small shard of the broken coffin lies in his palm. Muak has been controlling the corpse for one purpose only, not to kill the intruders, to carry that shard across the outer boundary. The moment the undead raider crosses the threshold, the shard loses contact with the prison's central formation. A section of the sealing law flickers. One chain around Muak's left wrist goes dark. He moves. The chain snaps. The sound hits like thunder. Every lantern in the corridor dies. Jaryuk begins chanting a prayer, but our sorcerer is already testing his freed hand. His fingers are skeletal. The nails have turned black. Several joints barely bend. None of that matters. A necromancer does not need a healthy body. He only needs dead ones. Muak closes his fist. The corpse carrying the shard explodes into black mist. That mist spreads across the floor, enters the bodies of the fallen soldiers, and wraps around their branded hearts. The divine seals struggle to maintain ownership. Muak pulls once. The seals tear free. 3 dead men rise together. This resurrection feels different. The first corpse is merely animated flesh. These 3 retain fragments of the miracles once stored inside their hearts. One carries a damaged purification flame. Another holds a defensive halo. The third still possesses the priesthood's ability to detect hidden tombs. Cheon Muak has never seen this system before. He understands it immediately. The gods distribute slivers of their authority through religious brands. When the worshipper dies, that authority normally returns to the altar. But a corpse inside the nameless domain no longer belongs to any recognized cycle. Nothing returns. Everything remains. The bone moth lifts from his shoulder. It manages 2 unsteady circles before crashing into his palm. A quiet chime moves through the darkness. Forgotten divinity acquired, incomplete name vessel nourished, first restoration condition identified. The tiny creature's missing wing begins forming as a faint outline of smoke. Not complete, not even close. Still, it is progress. Muak closes his hand around it protectively. Jaryuk watches the dead soldiers turn their borrowed miracles against the survivors. His arrogance finally cracks. Seal the chamber. A heavy guard slams his palm onto the floor. Golden walls rise around the coffin. The defensive formation uses the authority of the 7th god, Lady of Boundaries. Space folds inward, attempting to isolate Muak behind 9 compressed layers. Our guy examines the technique. Then he laughs. It is a quiet sound. That somehow makes it worse. The gods have changed their methods during his imprisonment. Their current servants no longer understand the original laws. They imitate divine authority through simplified rituals, copying fragments without knowing why the techniques work. This boundary is not a prison. It is 9 fresh corpses waiting to happen. Muak points at the golden wall. The undead soldier carrying the damaged purification flame presses both hands against it. Holy fire spreads across the barrier, searching for corruption. The barrier identifies the corpse as an authorized servant. It opens a passage. The dead man steps through. So do the other 2. Jaryok's mouth falls open. His own defense recognizes Muak's undead as allies. That is almost insulting. The 3 corpses crash into the remaining soldiers. Spears collide. Halos fracture. Blood sprays across the sealed stone. Yet Jaryok does not run. The examiner tears the crystal eye from his forehead. Golden blood pours down his face. He crushes the eye between his palms and calls upon the 9th god directly. The sepulchre becomes silent. A pressure far beyond mortal strength descends into the corridor. The surviving soldiers drop flat. The undead freeze. Even Muak's broken coffin sinks several inches into the ground. Above Jaryok, a gigantic eye opens in the darkness. Its iris contains a rotating sky filled with white stars. The 9th god is looking down, not fully. Only a fragment of attention crosses the distance between heaven and the prison, but that fragment is enough. The bone moth begins crumbling inside Muak's hand. His expression changes, not fear, not anger, something much colder. The 9th god's voice enters every surface at once. Unknown impurity, no recognition, no shock, no memory. The god truly does not remember him. Muak once rips 3 wings from this deity and uses its own halo to crush an army of angels. Now the divine creature stares directly at him and sees only an error inside an old prison. The erasure is complete. For one brief moment, the necromancer lowers his gaze to the dying moth. The last piece of his name is vanishing under divine pressure. His thumb moves across its cracked wing, careful, almost gentle. Then Cheon Muak looks back at the eye. The silver rings inside his pupils stop rotating. Every corpse in the corridor collapses. Jaryok smiles in relief. He assumes the divine presence has broken Muak's control. That assumption lasts less than a second. Black lines spread from the fallen bodies, connecting blood, bone, shadow, discarded miracles, and fragments of the shattered coffin. The entire chamber becomes a massive necromantic formation. Muak has not lost control. He has released the corpses to use them as ink. The 9th god's eye narrows. Recognition still does not return. Instinct does. The stars inside its iris begin shaking. Cheon Muak grips the spear in his chest. The formation below him activates. 3 stolen miracles ignite at once. Purification flame burns through the spear's outer inscriptions. The defensive halo blocks the prison's retaliation. The tomb detection brand locates the hidden anchor connecting this seal to the 9 heavens. The dark sorcerer pulls. The first divine spear tears free. Black blood erupts from his chest. One of the 9 suns surrounding his coffin goes dark. The pressure in the corridor explodes outward. Jaryok flies into a wall. The giant eye begins closing. Too late. Muak drives the stolen spear through the hidden anchor. The weapon pierces the 9th god's distant gaze. A scream rolls across heaven. For the first time since his erasure, something divine remembers being afraid. The bone moth stops crumbling. Its new wing solidifies. One more sound escapes its tiny body. Mu. A.K. Cheon Muak rises from the coffin. 8 spears remain inside him. Thousands of chains still cover the prison. His body is barely functional, and the world beyond these walls belongs completely to his enemies. The necromancer steps onto the blood-soaked floor anyway. He reaches down, grabs Cheon Jaryok by the face, and tears the living priest's divine brand from his soul. Cheon Jaryok remains conscious for exactly 3 heartbeats after Cheon Muak tears the divine brand from his soul. The first heartbeat carries pain, the second carries terror, the third carries understanding. Without the 9th god's mark, the High Examiner is nothing more than a 27-year-old mortal kneeling in front of history's most dangerous necromancer. Then Muak releases his face. Jaryok collapses onto the blood-soaked floor, clawing at the empty space behind his forehead. The crystal eye is gone. The divine connection is gone. Even the tiny warmth granted to every ordained priest has completely vanished. Our dark sorcerer studies the stolen brand between 2 fingers. It resembles a golden insect made from interlocking prayers. 9 translucent legs twitch around a miniature star, each movement attempting to crawl back toward its original owner. Muak closes his hand. Black veins spread across the symbol. The star turns silver. A message burns quietly across his mind. Authority severed, divine ownership removed, unnamed miracle available for reconstruction. The stolen brand stops resisting. Cheon Muak presses it into the center of his palm. Pain travels up his arm. His withered flesh splits open, but the divine mark does not reject him. It simply loses the ability to identify what has swallowed it. That is the true shape of his advantage. The gods erase his identity to make the world forget him. Now every law requiring a recognized owner fails the moment it enters his grasp. Blessings forget whom they serve. Curses forget whom they punish. Sacred relics forget who forged them. And corpses forget which heaven has the right to claim them. The bone moth crawls from his closed fist. Both wings are complete now, though the new one remains thin enough for light to pass through it. Two black characters pulse along its body. One carries the sound of mew, the other carries the sound of ak. It lifts into the air. This time, it does not fall. The tiny creature circles Muak's head once before landing on the spear, still buried beneath his collarbone. Its feet touch the divine metal. A faint ripple runs across the weapon. The moth jerks back. Its wings begin smoking. Muak catches it before it drops. Too early. The creature trembles inside his palm. Then it points one fragile leg toward the spear. A hair-thin crack has appeared across the third god's inscription. Our necromancer looks at the damage. It is almost nothing. Still, the moth has just harmed a weapon forged from divine law. That matters. He places the creature on his shoulder. Do it again when you can survive it. The bone moth folds its wings. Muak. Its voice is clearer now, not intelligent, not yet, but no longer just an echo. Jaryok hears the name. His eyes widen. The High Examiner searches his memory and finds nothing. The divine archives contain millions of sealed criminals, extinct demons, fallen kings, and erased sects. That name belongs to none of them. Yet his body reacts before his mind does. Every instinct tells him to run. Muak turns toward the broken corridor. 3 undead raiders wait among the fallen stones. Their movements remain stiff, and the stolen miracles inside them flicker unpredictably. One corpse carries purification flame. One carries a defensive halo. The last carries tomb perception, useful abilities, terrible vessels. The dead soldiers' branded hearts were designed to channel divine power for a few seconds at a time. Their organs are already decomposing under the pressure. Cheon Muak raises his hand. Black threads extend from his fingertips and enter the corpses through their mouths. The first body convulses, its ribs spread outward. The stolen purification flame sinks from its heart into the bone itself, engraving pale symbols along the skeleton. Flesh burns away. Armor melts into the joints. When the process ends, a scorched skeletal soldier stands inside a shell of white ceremonial metal. The second corpse follows. Its defensive halo breaks into 6 pieces and attaches behind the spine like a shattered wheel. Each fragment produces a thin barrier no wider than a shield. The third corpse opens its eyes. The eyeballs turn black. Lines appear across the walls from its perspective, revealing buried doors, concealed inscriptions, and hidden graves throughout the sepulchre. The interface behind Muak's eyes responds with a cold pulse. 3 subjugated vessels stabilized, inherited miracles retained at less than 1/10 efficiency, nameless domain radius expanded to 33 steps. There it is, a measurable limit. Anything dead within 33 steps can be claimed directly. Anything beyond that requires a mark, a carrier, or a prepared formation. Our sorcerer walks away from Jaryok. The 3 undead follow. No order leaves his mouth. The commands pass through the nameless domain itself, moving across the black lines now spreading beneath the floor. Jaryok stares after him. You are leaving me alive? Muak stops. The High Examiner immediately regrets speaking. Cheon Muak looks over one shoulder. No. Jaryok's face drains of color. The Necromancer raises the stolen divine brand. I am returning you. That answer is somehow worse. Muak closes his fingers around the symbol. The golden insect form collapses into liquid light. He draws a small circle on Jaryok's chest, directly above the heart. The priest screams. Silver fire enters his body. His severed connection to the 9th god does not return. Something else occupies the empty channel instead. A false blessing, a carefully damaged fragment. Just enough divine power to make the Synod believe Jaryok survives through a miracle. Not enough to let the gods see what truly happened. Muak kneels beside him. The dark sorcerer presses 2 fingers against the man's temple. Images enter Jaryok's mind, a shattered coffin, an unstable corpse, a collapsing prison, and 3 dead soldiers destroyed by ancient defensive mechanisms. Every image is true. None of them reveal the whole truth. The best lies do not replace reality. They arrange it. Jaryok sees himself escaping while the unknown prisoner remains trapped beneath 8 divine spears. He sees the stolen brand as a damaged relic lodged in his chest. He sees the outer chambers filled with fragments worth enough to purchase a provincial title. Greed pushes through his fear. Muak notices. Of course he does. The High Examiner is a servant of heaven, but he is also the son of a declining noble house. His armor is polished, his boots are repaired, his ceremonial sword carries an expensive scabbard around a mediocre blade. A man pretending not to need money. Perfect. Cheon Muak places a fragment of sun coffin inside Jaryok's robe. The shard continues radiating pure divine energy. It looks priceless. It is also marked. The instant it enters any consecrated building, Muak will know the building's location. The instant a priest touches it, the nameless domain will memorize the shape of that priest's blessing. And the instant the synod gathers a recovery force around it, our necromancer will have exactly what he needs. More bodies. More brands. More keys to the current age. Jaryok struggles to stand. Why? Muak turns away. The question receives no answer. Behind him, the defensive undead lifts the injured examiner with one arm and carries him toward the outer passage. Jaryok begins shouting. He demands release. He invokes the authority of the synod. He threatens divine judgment. The corpse does not react. It walks through 3 ruined chambers, crosses the threshold of the nameless domain, and throws the priest onto a stairway leading upward. Then the undead soldier returns. The moment it steps back inside the marked territory, its shattered halo brightens. Cheon Muak watches the change. The domain does more than preserve stolen miracles. It nourishes them. Slowly, painfully, but continuously. Every corpse inside his territory draws power from unclaimed death, discarded memories, and broken laws scattered throughout the sepulchre. The prison is not empty. It never was. The gods use this place for more than one prisoner. Muak follows the tomb-seeing undead through a hidden doorway. Beyond it waits a descending corridor covered in sealed names. Some belong to demon kings, some belong to divine beasts. Others have been scratched out so thoroughly that even their shapes no longer remain. The bone moth leaves his shoulder. It drifts toward one erased inscription. Its wings beat faster. A faint whisper leaks from the wall. Not a voice. A memory of being called. The moth touches the stone. Black dust rises. One new mark appears along its abdomen. The creature spins wildly through the air, overwhelmed by the fragment it has consumed. Its body swells from the size of a fingernail to the size of Muak's palm. Then it crashes into his chest. Our hero catches it. The moth's skull-like head now carries a third silver eye. The eye remains closed. Its 2 wings harden into layered bone plates, and thin trails of black mist follow every movement. Companion evolution does not arrive as some grand heavenly spectacle. It arrives as a creature coughing grave dust into Muak's hand. The necromancer brushes the dust from its head. The moth looks offended. That is new. Muak places it back on his shoulder. The creature immediately turns away from him, also new. A quiet pulse rolls through the domain. Incomplete name vessel has acquired grave sense. Erased identities within 100 steps can now be detected. Vessel stability remains critically low. The third eye opens. The corridor changes. Dozens of hidden marks flare across the walls. Some belong to prisoners. Some belong to executioners. One belongs to a door buried beneath 6 layers of stone. The moth points toward it. Muak. Cheon Muak approaches the wall. The tomb, seeing undead, confirms an empty chamber beyond it. The moth disagrees. Our sorcerer trusts the moth. He places his palm against the stone. The stolen brand inside his hand activates. A thin divine light spreads through the wall, forcing the ancient prison to recognize him as an authorized examiner. The concealed door opens. Cold air pours out. Inside stands an army. Not a living one. Thousands of kneeling corpses fill the chamber from wall to wall. Everybody wears black ceremonial robes stitched with silver thread. Their heads remain bowed. Their hands rest on rusted swords driven into the floor. No flesh has decayed. No bone has cracked. Each corpse has been preserved by a separate sealing nail hammered through the back of the neck. At the far end of the chamber, a stone monument bears a title, the Silent Funeral Guard. Muak recognizes the formation style. Not the soldiers. That irritates him. Someone builds this army using his necromantic principles, then alters the structure to serve divine law. The gods erase his name. Then their servants steal his work. Honestly, that is almost impressive in its shamelessness. Cheon Muak steps into the chamber. The first row of corpses raises its head. Empty eye sockets glow gold. 100 swords leave the floor at once. The guard attacks. The defensive undead moves first. Its 6 halo fragments spread into a layered wall. Rusted blades crash against the barrier, and 3 fragments immediately shatter. The purification corpse thrusts both hands forward. White fire sweeps across the front line. The flames do not destroy the funeral guards. They burn the golden control threads hidden inside their skulls. Muak sees the mechanism. Each corpse is connected to a central command seal beneath the monument. The sealing nails preserve the bodies, while the divine threads force obedience, a crude imitation of subjugation. Effective, but crude. The silent funeral guard pushes forward. The defensive corpse loses another halo fragment. The tomb-seeing undead identifies a narrow channel beneath the floor. Muak moves. He walks directly into the army. A sword slices across his side. Another pierces his shoulder. His weakened body cannot evade everything. It does not need to. Our necromancer allows the corpses to surround him. He watches their rhythm. Every seventh step, the command threads tighten. Every third strike, the sealing nails pulse. Every time one guard changes direction, the central monument flickers. There, the weakness. Muak slams his palm against the floor. The stolen divine brand releases a pulse of false authority. For a single instant, the monument recognizes him as an examiner. The funeral guards stop. Cheon Muak tears one of the 8 remaining spears from his abdomen. Black blood pours across his robes. The bone moth launches from his shoulder and strikes the spear's inscription at the exact moment the weapon leaves his body. A second crack appears. The divine weapon weakens. Muak drives it into the narrow channel identified by the tomb-seeing corpse. Stone explodes. The spear pierces the command seal beneath the monument. Every golden thread becomes visible. Our dark sorcerer closes his fist. The nameless domain expands. 33 steps. 40. 60. 100. The black lines racing beneath the chamber touch the first row of corpses. Divine ownership dissolves. Golden threads turn silver, then black. The change spreads. 1 row becomes 10. 10 becomes 100. 100 becomes 1,000. The old control system fights back. Sealing nails ignite. Bodies begin tearing themselves apart. Muak raises both hands. The 3 undead servants take positions around him. Purification flame burns the divine threads. The remaining halo fragments absorb the backlash. Grave sense guides the bone moth through the chamber, marking every damaged identity before it disappears. Cheon Muak pulls. The entire army bows, not to the gods, to him. The last golden thread snaps. A thunderous notification rolls through his mind. 2,411 preserved corpses, subjugated, silent funeral formation acquired, nameless domain radius expanded to 1,000 steps, current command capacity exceeded by more than 600%. Blood runs from Muak's nose. His knees nearly buckle. Nearly. The army is too large for his current body. Every corpse sends fragments of sensation into his mind. Broken fingers, rusted joints, sealed memories, centuries of silent obedience. Our hero does not release them. He reorganizes them. 10 groups, then 50, then 100. Command passes from Muak to the 3 miracle-bearing undead, then from those captains into the funeral ranks. The pressure inside his skull drops. A new hierarchy forms. Not perfect. Stable enough. The bone moth lands on the stone monument. Its third eye remains open now. One of the erased symbols on its body glows. A single funeral guard near the rear lifts his head higher than the others. Unlike the rest, he still possesses a fragment of memory. He reaches into his robe and removes a broken black tablet. The object bears one surviving line of text. The great necromantic sovereign must never be named. Muak takes the tablet. The writing style belongs to the 9th god. The date beneath it comes from only 3,000 years ago. Cheon Muak was sealed almost 100,000 years earlier. That means the gods returned to this prison long after his defeat. They did not merely forget him. They continued checking. They continued stealing. And at some point, they became afraid enough to build an army outside his coffin. Our sorcerer stores the tablet inside his robe. No anger appears on his face. The smile is gone, though. That is worse. Above the sepulchre, far beyond layers of buried worlds, Cheon Muak reaches the first synod outpost. Priests rush toward him. They see the shard inside his robe. They see the false blessing burning above his heart. They hear his fragmented report about an unstable ancient vault filled with divine relics. By midnight, a sealed message leaves the outpost. By dawn, 3 regional temples request ownership of the excavation. Before noon, the Celestial Synod dispatches a recovery force led by 2 archbishops and 100 consecrated knights. None of them notices the black grain of dust clinging to Jaryuk's shadow. Deep below, the bone moth's third eye turns toward the ceiling. Cheon Muak feels the marked shard entering a holy transport. One temple, then another, then the central road. The bait is moving. Our necromancer raises one hand. 2,411 dead soldiers rise in perfect silence. He points toward the upper gates. The first 100 begin marching. The first 100 dead soldiers reach the upper gate before the Celestial Synod realizes the grave beneath them is breathing. They do not charge. They simply stand behind the final stone door, arranged in 10 perfectly silent rows while consecrated footsteps thunder through the tunnels above. Broken swords rest against black-robed shoulders. Empty eye sockets stare forward. Not one piece of rusted armor makes a sound. Cheon Muak waits several chambers below. 7 divine spears remain buried inside his body. Black blood continues soaking through his ruined robes, and controlling more than 2,000 corpses feels like holding an entire collapsing fortress inside his skull. Still, our necromancer looks completely unbothered. The bone moth clings to his shoulder, its third eye fixed on the ceiling. Through the marked sun shard hidden inside Sion Jaryuk's robe, Muak watches the recovery force descend. 100 consecrated knights, 24 grave priests, 6 relic bearers, 2 archbishops, and 1 prisoner. Jaryuk walks between the archbishops with silver chains around his wrists. The false blessing above his heart remains intact, but suspicion has already caught up with him. The synod believes he stole something. That is useful. It means greed is dividing them before they even enter the trap. At the front of the expedition walks Archbishop Baek Guryong, commander of the Eastern Halo and keeper of the Seventh God's boundary rights. He is broad enough to fill the passage by himself, and 6 golden rings rotate behind his back like miniature suns. Beside him moves Archbishop Yen Sori, a pale woman carrying a staff grown from the spine of a divine beast. Her rank is lower, but the grave priests keep their distance from her. Smart people. Turns out, Yen Sori serves the 5th god, the divine authority responsible for memory, confession, and the extraction of forbidden names. The moment her staff enters the sepulchre, the bone moth shudders. One of the marks on its abdomen begins fading. Muak places 2 fingers over the creature's back. The fading slows, not stops. Slows. That changes the plan. He expected the synod to send soldiers and relic collectors. A servant of the 5th god is different. Memory authority can expose false records, rebuild erased identities, and possibly recognize the fragment sleeping inside the moth. Worse, Sori should not be here. The High Examiner's message only reports divine relics and an unstable prisoner. According to the hierarchy, Muak reconstructs from stolen brands. A memory archbishop requires direct authorization from the central temple. That authorization arrives too quickly. Someone higher up already knows this prison matters. Our dark sorcerer lifts his gaze. The gods may not consciously remember him. Their institutions clearly remember the fear. Cheon Muak adjusts immediately. The original plan is simple. Allow the recovery force to enter, isolate the archbishops, claim their dead, and use the stolen authority to open the next prison layer. Now the priority changes. Yen Sori cannot be allowed to examine the bone moth. She also cannot die before Muak learns what summoned her. The first stone door opens. Golden light floods the chamber containing the 100 funeral guards. Baek Guryong enters without hesitation. His consecrated knights follow in shield formation, each carrying a spear engraved with boundary prayers. Grave priests remain behind them. Relic bearers raise mirrored lanterns that reveal necromantic residue along the walls. The silent funeral guard does not move. One young knight lowers his weapon. They are inactive. Guryong studies the kneeling corpses. No, the archbishop's 6 halos widen. They are waiting. That is the first intelligent thing anyone from the synod has said. Yen Sori steps forward. Her staff touches the floor. A ring of pale light travels through the chamber, passing over every corpse and exposing the black command lines hidden beneath their robes. The grave priests recoil. One whispers the word heresy. Another starts praying. Sori looks toward the sealed passage below. Something has overwritten the original command structure. Baek Guryong's expression hardens. Can you identify it? She closes her eyes. The 5th god's authority spreads through the dead army. Names begin surfacing. Fragments of old soldiers, forgotten executioners, prison wardens erased by time. The bone moth convulses. Muak feels the memory spell searching through the nameless domain, moving from corpse to corpse, tracing every command back toward its owner. Toward him, our sorcerer raises one hand. The first stage begins. He allows the spell through. Pale light enters the lower chambers and wraps around his body. The 7 spears react. Divine inscriptions ignite. Every wound opens at once. Muak's knees hit the floor. The pressure is savage. The 5th god's authority does not attack flesh. It forces identity onto whatever it touches. For an ordinary criminal, that means exposing hidden names and forgotten sins. For Cheon Muak, it is far worse. The prison tries to recognize him. The chains tighten. The spears burn. The erased laws surrounding his coffin wake from their long confusion and begin rebuilding the shape of their original prisoner. Baek Guryong feels the reaction through the walls. There, his halos flare. The archbishop drives both palms forward. 6 golden barriers crash through the sealed passage, breaking doors, splitting pillars, and forcing a direct path toward the lower chambers. The funeral guards receive the impact without defending themselves. Hundreds shatter, black robes tear apart, preserved bones scatter across the floor. Guryong smiles. He believes the enemy's army is collapsing. That is exactly what Muak needs him to believe. The second stage begins. Our Necromancer does not counterattack. He watches. Every barrier pulse follows the same structure. The outer halo identifies hostile territory. The second defines its borders. The remaining four compress everything inside until resistance becomes impossible. A perfect divine cage, and a perfect transport mechanism. Meanwhile, Yeon Sorye continues tracing the memory spell. Her pale light reaches the chamber where Muak kneels. The bone moth crawls beneath his collar. Its third eye closes. The mark containing his name dims to almost nothing. Muak's own vision flickers. For a brief instant, he remembers the final battle against the 9 gods. A sky made from severed wings. The 9th god screaming beneath his heel. The 5th god standing far behind the others, holding a book with no pages. Then the memory changes. There is a 10th shadow, not a god, not a mortal. Something stands beyond the battlefield, watching while the 9 gods seal him. Cheon Muak freezes. That figure does not exist in his original memory. The prison's restoration is not returning a lost detail. It is revealing something that was removed. Someone interferes with his mind before the seal closes. Someone besides the 9 gods. The realization lands hard. Our dark sorcerer had assumed the gods erased his name because they feared his return. Now he understands that the erasure may have served another purpose. It may have hidden him from something else. The plan changes again. He cannot simply recover his identity. Not yet. Muak drives 2 fingers into the wound beneath his ribs and pulls out a thread of burning divine law. He wraps it around the bone moth, masking its name fragment beneath the 3rd god's flame. The creature trembles. Its new wing cracks. But the 5th god's search passes over it. Yeon Sori opens her eyes. Nothing. Baek Guryong glances toward her. You said something, controls them. Something does. But it has no recoverable identity. Jaryok stands behind the grave, priests, wrists still chained. His breathing changes. He remembers the crystal eye finding no name, race, or rank inside the coffin. He says nothing. Muak notices through the marked shard. The High Examiner is learning. That makes him either useful or dangerous, possibly both. Guryong raises one fist. The consecrated knights advance. They destroy the remaining funeral guards row by row. Spears split skulls. Boundary barriers crush bodies against walls. Purification prayers burn through black command lines. The dead army appears helpless, but every destroyed corpse leaves something behind. A broken ceiling nail. A strip of preserved flesh. A fragment of stolen divine authority. And most importantly, a shadow. Those shadows spread beneath the knight's feet. Thin, unnoticed. Connected. The 3rd stage begins. Cheon Muak rises. Blood drips from his chin. The 7 spears remain inside him, but the pressure from the memory spell has awakened dormant inscriptions across their shafts. Each weapon now broadcasts a tiny piece of the prison's original control structure. Our sorcerer reaches for the spear beneath his left shoulder. The bone moth emerges from his collar. Its cracked wing struggles once, then twice. On the 3rd beat, it flies. The creature passes through the broken chambers, moving along the shadows left by the shattered funeral guards. No priest notices it. Gravesense guides it between detection wards and beneath the rotating light of mirrored lanterns. Yeon Sorye suddenly turns. She hears something, not wings, a name trying to exist. The moth lands on the central boundary ring behind Baek Guryong. Its 3rd eye opens. Every shadow in the chamber becomes visible. Guryong's smile disappears. What is that? Too late. The bone moth drives its tiny skull into the golden ring. The crack it creates is microscopic. That is enough. Far below, Muak pulls the spear from his shoulder. The divine weapon comes free with a brutal spray of black blood. He does not throw it at the archbishop. He drives it into his own shadow. The spear vanishes. A heartbeat later, it erupts from the crack inside Guryong's boundary ring. The archbishop twists aside. The weapon misses his spine by an inch. Still, the strike pierces the halo and nails it to the ceiling. The remaining 5 rings destabilize. Their borders overlap. Their compression fields fold inward. And every knight standing beneath them becomes trapped inside the very formation meant to imprison Muak. Panic explodes across the chamber. Golden walls slam down between squads. Knights crash into invisible barriers. Spears rebound from distorted space. Priests shout contradictory commands as the boundary formation begins treating every living body as an unauthorized intruder. Baek Guryong roars. He tears at the spear lodged inside his halo. The weapon refuses to move. It recognizes him as part of the prison now. Muak steps through the lower doorway. The surviving priests finally see him. A withered man in ruined black robes. 6 divine spears still buried through his torso. a bone moth circling above his shoulder. And behind him, more than 2,000 dead soldiers filling the corridor in absolute silence. The chamber goes still. Cheon Muak raises his hand. Every shadow left by the destroyed funeral guard stands up, not as full corpses, as black silhouettes wearing fragments of their former armor. This is the skill he has been testing since the first raider dies. The nameless muster. A destroyed subordinate leaves behind an identityless command imprint inside his domain. The imprint cannot think, speak, or survive sunlight for long, but it can repeat one final order. Hundreds of shadow soldiers turn toward the trapped knights. Muak closes his fingers. They attack. The Synod formation collapses into madness. Consecrated knights stab at enemies that rise from beneath their own boots. Shadow blades pass through armor and cut directly into the branded channels near their spines. Borrowed miracles flicker. Defensive prayers fail. Golden blood spreads across the floor. Guryong finally rips the divine spear from his halo. The damaged ring explodes. The blast destroys 40 shadow soldiers and throws the bone moth across the chamber. Muak's gaze follows the creature. That tiny distraction costs him. Baek Guryong crosses the distance in a single step. The archbishop's fist slams into Muak's chest. 3 embedded spears snap deeper. The impact launches our necromancer through a stone pillar. His back strikes the far wall. Bones crack. The nameless domain flickers. Dozens of shadow soldiers dissolve. Guryong charges again. Whatever you are, you remain beneath divine law. Muak watches his approach. 1 step, 2, 3. The archbishop's surviving halos rotate into a spearhead formation. Boundary pressure gathers around his fist, enough to crush an entire fortress gate. Our dark sorcerer remains against the wall. The blow comes. The bone moth dives between them. Its fractured wing sheds black dust. The creature opens its third eye directly in front of Guryong's face. For one instant, the archbishop sees the erased inscription hidden inside his own halo, not Cheon Muak's name. The name of the dead craftsman who originally forged the relic. Gravesense finds what divine ownership buries. The halo remembers its first master. Its current bond weakens. Guryong's fist loses half its power. Muak catches the strike. His arm breaks anyway. He does not release it. The necromancer twists the archbishop's wrist, pulls him forward, and presses his blood-covered palm against the man's chest. The stolen brand inside Muak activates. Guryong's divine mark becomes visible beneath his skin. A golden boundary sigil. 6 linked circles. 1 recognized owner. Cheon Muak erases the owner. The sigil turns black. Baek Guryong's remaining halos stop. Their light vanishes. The archbishop stares at them in disbelief. Muak drives his forehead into Guryong's face. Bone breaks. The giant man staggers. Our sorcerer tears the corrupted boundary mark from his chest and crushes it between both hands. Every golden wall in the chamber reverses. Instead of trapping the Synod force apart, the barriers compress them into one central enclosure. Knights, priests, relic bearers, all packed together. The 4th stage arrives. Muak opens the nameless domain completely. The dead answer, not just the funeral guards. The consecrated knights killed moments earlier rise inside the barrier. Their divine brands remain fresh. Their weapons still carry active blessings. Their bodies turn against the surviving formation before confusion can become grief. 1 dead knight impales a relic bearer. Another crushes a grave priest beneath his shield. A 3rd grabs his living commander and drags him into the shadows. The Synod soldiers understand the horror too late. Every casualty strengthens the enemy. Every blessing becomes stolen ammunition. Every corpse opens the cage from within. Yeon Sorye slams her staff into the ground. A pale dome protects the remaining priests. Names flare above every living head, anchoring their identities against Muak's control. Our necromancer studies the defense. He could break it, not without killing her. That remains unacceptable. So he points toward Baek Guryong instead. The 100 surviving shadow soldiers converge. The archbishop fights like a beast. Even stripped of divine authority, he breaks skulls with his bare hands and tears shadows apart by force. He reaches Muak once more, blood covering half his face. You think heaven will not see this? Cheon Muak looks at him. Heaven already looked. The bone moth lands on Guryong's back. Its 3rd eye finds the name inside his soul. Muak speaks that name softly. Baek Guryong. The archbishop freezes. The nameless domain closes around him. His shadow separates from his feet. Then it wraps around his body like burial cloth. Guryong falls without reaching the ground. The darkness swallows him first. A cold pulse travels through Muak's mind. High-order divine vessel captured, boundary authority acquired, command capacity increased. Nameless muster stabilized for 9 minutes under covered light. Around him, the surviving funeral guards kneel. The newly raised knights kneel with them. Hundreds of witnesses stare at Cheon Muak through Yun Sorye's pale barrier. No one knows his identity, no one understands his class. But every person in that chamber will remember the same image. A prisoner walks out carrying divine spears through his body. An archbishop disappears into his shadow, and an army of heaven's own dead bows to something the gods refuse to name. Yun Sorye grips her staff. Who are you? Muak turns toward her. The bone moth settles on his shoulder. One cracked wing folds against the other. Our necromancer reaches into Guryong's abandoned shadow and removes a blackened halo no larger than a bracelet. Then he throws it at Seon Jaryok. The chained examiner catches it instinctively. Every priest looks at him. Suspicion ignites at once. Muak does not answer Sorye. He points toward the upper passage. The barrier behind the Synod survivors opens. A path to the surface. A deliberate escape. Yun Sorye understands that much. You are letting us leave. Cheon Muak walks back toward the lower chambers. No. The first newly raised knight steps beside him. Then another. Then 50. Our dark sorcerer glances over his shoulder. I am letting heaven receive the report. The pale barrier trembles. No one follows. By sunrise, survivors stagger from the sepulchre, carrying a wounded archbishop's empty robes, a corrupted halo, and 3 mutually impossible explanations. By noon, rumors spread through every temple on the eastern continent. Some claim an ancient demon has awakened. Some claim Baek Guryong betrays the synod and disappears with a forbidden army. Others claim Seon Jaryok sacrifices the expedition to steal a divine relic. Only Yun Sorye says nothing. She returns to the central temple with one memory sealed inside her staff, a bone moth opening a third eye. Deep beneath the earth, Cheon Muak watches that memory travel toward the 5th god. Then he looks at the black tablet recovered from the silent funeral guard. A new line has appeared beneath the old warning. The seal was not built to keep the prisoner inside. Muak reads the sentence twice. The bone moth's wings stop moving. Far below the sepulchre, something knocks against the final gate. 3 slow impacts, then a 4th. The rhythm matches the missing figure from Muak's restored memory. Our necromancer turns away from the marching army. He changes direction, and for the first time since leaving the coffin, Cheon Muak descends deeper into his own prison. The thing beneath Cheon Muak's prison knocks a 5th time, and 2,000 dead soldiers turn their heads toward the sound. No command passes through the nameless domain. No officer signals them. The entire silent funeral guard reacts by instinct. That alone tells our necromancer more than any divine archive could. Whatever waits below has frightened these corpses before. Cheon Muak descends through the final corridor with 6 divine spears still buried inside him. The bone moth hovers near his shoulder, both wings spread wide and its third eye fixed on the darkness ahead. Behind them march 3 miracle-bearing captains. The scorched skeleton carries purification flame. The halo-backed guardian holds the stolen boundary authority. The tombseer maps every buried chamber through walls thicker than city gates. The rest of the army remains above. Not because Muak fears the thing below. Because sending 2,000 corpses through a narrow tunnel is the kind of embarrassingly stupid strategy only living generals consider heroic. The final gate stands at the bottom of 700 steps. It has no handle, no hinges, no visible inscription, just a smooth wall of gray material that looks like stone until the bone moth approaches. Its third eye opens. Millions of names appear across the surface, not carved, compressed. The gate is built from identities, kings forgotten by their kingdoms, children erased from family records, gods removed from dead religions, entire species whose existence has been stripped from creation. Each stolen name forms one grain inside the door. Muak stops 3 steps away. The moth drifts closer. A whisper enters the chamber. Muak. The creature immediately retreats. That voice does not come from its mouth. Something on the other side knows his name. The dark sorcerer lifts one hand. Black threads spread across the gate, searching for death, memory, ownership, or command structure. They find nothing. The barrier is not alive. It is not dead. It is what remains after both categories are removed. The thing knocks again. The sound travels through Muak's bones. One of the divine spears inside his chest vibrates. The third god's flame flickers along its shaft, and a hidden inscription briefly appears beneath the original seal. Do not let the nameless one answer. Our guy reads the warning. Then he looks at the bone moth. The tiny creature stares back. Its third eye narrows. Apparently, even an unfinished grave insect knows when someone has stolen its title. Muak touches the gate. The compressed names surge toward his hand. Thousands of identities try to attach themselves to him at once. Dead titles crawl across his skin. Forgotten memories enter his veins. 100 kings remember their executions through his eyes. The nameless domain trembles. For the first time, the advantage created by his erasure becomes a weakness. An empty identity can evade divine law. It can also be filled. Muak pulls his hand away. 3 unfamiliar names remain burned across his palm. The bone moth dives. Its mouth opens wider than its skull should allow. It bites the first name from his flesh, then the second. The third fights back. Silver letters wrap around the creature's throat and force one of its wings shut. The moth spirals toward the floor. Cheon Muak catches it. The foreign name continues spreading across its body. Our necromancer presses his thumb against the creature's third eye. The nameless domain contracts. Every corpse in the prison becomes silent. All available authority concentrates into the bone moth. The invading name stops. A message cuts through Muak's mind. Name vessel overloaded. Foreign identity detected. Forced assimilation risks. Permanent corruption. He ignores the warning. Not recklessly. Deliberately. The moth already carries 2 fragments of his erased name. That makes it the only vessel capable of separating identity from ownership. If it cannot master this function now, it will never survive the 5th god's next search. Muak tears the foreign name in half. One fragment enters the moth. The other enters the divine spear beneath his shoulder. The weapon screams. There is no better word for the sound. Metal twists. Sacred fire turns black. The spear begins identifying itself as the dead king whose name Muak just forced inside it. Divine authority loses coherence. Our dark sorcerer grips the shaft and pulls. The 5th spear leaves his body. Black blood splashes across the final gate. The compressed names react, not to Muak, to the bone moth. The creature lifts from his palm. Its body cracks open along the spine. A second pair of wings pushes through. These wings are not bone. They are made from thin strips of dark parchment covered in moving names. The third eye divides into 3 smaller pupils. Its skull grows narrow and sharp. A tail of black mist extends behind it, filled with fragments of voices that never become words. The transformation remains incomplete. One parchment wing is shorter than the others. Its body shakes every few seconds. Still, it no longer resembles a helpless moth. It resembles a living funeral register. A cold notification settles behind Muak's eyes. Incomplete name vessel advances into grave archivist form. Foreign identities can now be stored temporarily. Erased name detection expands across 3,000 steps. The evolved creature lands on his forearm. Then it bites him. Hard. Cheon Muak looks at the tiny jaw locked around his skin. The grave archivist refuses to release him. Apparently, forcing a dangerous evolution without permission earns consequences. Our hero lifts his arm. The creature continues hanging there. Meal. The bone insect freezes. That is the first name Muak gives it. The word means extinction. It also means the final silence after a name disappears. Myol releases his arm. Its 4 wings rise proudly. Then the creature turns away as though naming it was entirely his idea. Personality arrives faster than obedience. Muak almost smiles. The gate drinks the blood on its surface. Millions of compressed identities whisper at once. Myol's 3 pupils rotate. The creature flies along the wall, following names no one else can see. Each wing beat leaves a dark symbol in the air. 1 symbol. Then 9. Then 81. The marks form a massive circular archive across the gate. Muak recognizes the pattern. It mirrors the prison formation used on his coffin, but the center is reversed. His seal is designed to keep an identity trapped inside a body. This gate is designed to keep an identity trapped outside one. Something beyond it has no name because its name is here. The dark sorcerer places the corrupted divine spear against the completed pattern. Meol immediately lands on the shaft. Its parchment wings cover the foreign king's name. The gate mistakes the weapon for one of its own compressed identities. A narrow opening appears. Cold darkness leaks through. The tomb seer approaches. Its black eyes search the space beyond. Then the corpse collapses. Both eye sockets burst. Whatever lies past the gate cannot be observed through normal perception. The purification captain raises its burning hands. Muak stops it. Light would announce his presence. More importantly, the thing below has been waiting almost 100,000 years. Letting it believe the gate remains closed is far more useful than dramatic entry. Our necromancer sends a single shadow through the gap. The imprint comes from one of the destroyed funeral guards. It possesses no soul, no name, no physical body. For 9 minutes, it can repeat one command. Observe. The shadow slips through. Muak sees nothing. He hears nothing. Then information enters the nameless domain as physical reactions. The shadow walks across a surface that bends beneath no weight. It passes structures shaped like enormous ribs. It encounters wind moving inward from every direction. After 87 steps, something looks at it. The shadow disappears. Not destroyed. Recognized. A voice travels back through the broken command imprint. So the grave finally remembers its king. Every divine spear inside Muak ignites. The gap begins widening. The thing below has found the connection. Our necromancer drives the corrupted spear deeper into the gate. Myal spreads all four wings. Stored names pour from its body and fill the opening. The foreign identities act like temporary mortar. The gate closes. A black hand reaches through before the gap vanishes. 5 fingers touch the outer chamber. The stone turns transparent. Muak sees a sky beneath the floor. Stars hang below it. Each star resembles a sealed eye. The black hand feels across the gate, searching. Myal dives toward it. Our dark sorcerer catches the creature by one parchment wing. The grave archivist twists furiously. It wants to attack. That is either courage or a catastrophic lack of judgment. Muak pulls it back. The hand withdraws. The gate becomes solid. Silence returns. The necromancer studies the 5 transparent marks left in the stone. He knows that hand. Not personally, structurally. The same absence surrounds it as the 10th shadow inside his restored memory. Whatever watches his battle against the gods now waits beneath the prison, and it calls him king. That word is not flattery. It is a claim. Above the sepulchre, the celestial synod begins turning suspicion into policy. Archbishop Yan Sorie arrives at the central temple before sunset. She enters through 12 memory wards. She surrenders her staff. She submits every surviving recollection for inspection. The priests find blood, undead soldiers, a corrupted boundary halo, a nameless prisoner carrying 6 divine spears through his body. They do not find Miol. The evolved creature removes its image from the staff before Sorie reaches the temple. That is the grave archivist's first independent action. Muak never commands it. The little monster simply understands that any record of its new form would become a weapon. Deep below, Miol coughs a pale memory fragment into Muak's palm. Inside it, Yeon Sorie stands before a council of 9 empty thrones. Only 3 are occupied by mortal representatives. The other 6 contain curtains of divine light. The gods themselves are listening. The 7th god demands military purification. The 5th requests controlled memory extraction. The 9th remains silent. A senior cardinal places Baek Guryong's blackened halo on the council floor. The relic begins crawling toward the eastern throne. Even corrupted, it seeks divine ownership. Then Seon Jaryok enters. Chains cover his wrists. Synod judges accuse him of theft, sabotage, and collusion with an unknown grave entity. Jaryok denies everything. The sun shard remains hidden beneath his skin. He placed it there before returning. Smart. The black grain attached to his shadow continues feeding every word to the nameless domain. One cardinal asks why the prisoner allowed survivors to escape. Jaryok lowers his head. Because he wanted this council to hear about him. The divine curtains go still. Another judge demands a name. The examiner gives the only honest answer available. He has none. The 9th god's light flickers. A crack appears across its curtain. No one else reacts. Yeon Sorie does. Her eyes narrow. She notices divine fear. That makes her dangerous in an entirely new way. The council chooses escalation. Not an army, something worse. They authorize the opening of the ossuary ledger, a restricted archive containing every necromantic technique seized across the last 30,000 years. The synod plans to identify Muak through the methods he uses. Our sorcerer watches the memory fragment without blinking. There is the investment. The enemy believes knowledge stolen from him will reveal him. They are preparing to carry entire archives of his own techniques toward the marked shard. Every book, every relic, every preserved corpse, all gathered in one consecrated location. The bait from the broken coffin is no longer attracting soldiers. It is attracting history. Cheon Muak closes his fingers around the stolen memory. Mayol watches him. The 3 pupils in its third eye shift toward the ceiling. The grave archivist understands the opportunity. Muak returns to the upper chambers. While he explores the final gate, the miracle-bearing captains reorganize the army according to his last command. The silent funeral guard now controls 7 prison levels. More than 3,000 lesser remains have been recovered from collapsed cells. Most are useless as warriors. That does not make them useless. Dead scribes rebuild inscriptions. Dead smiths repair ceremonial armor. Former prison wardens map tunnels hidden from the tomb seer. Executed formation masters convert abandoned cells into command nodes. The sepulchre stops resembling a ruin. It becomes a functioning territory. Black lines spread across walls. Boundary halos reinforce broken entrances. Purification flame burns divine surveillance marks instead of undead flesh. Every captured miracle is assigned a new purpose. Cheon Muak does not build an army alone. He builds infrastructure. That is what separates a necromancer from a man throwing corpses at a problem. The defensive captain kneels before him. Its shattered halo now carries a 7th fragment. The new piece comes from Baek Guryong's corrupted authority. Behind it stand 12 newly promoted corpse officers, each carrying a small boundary ring inside the ribcage. The Purification Captain presents 43 divine brands removed from dead knights. The symbols float inside a sealed black flame, unable to return to heaven. Myeol dives into the fire. Muak reaches for it. Too slow. The Grave Archivist swallows one brand. Its body flashes gold. For half a second, every wing stiffens. Then Myeol spits the blessing back out. The symbol is now blank. No god, no owner, no recorded function. Just raw authority. The creature looks at Muak, proud. Our dark sorcerer picks up the empty brand. This changes the scale completely. Before, he can corrupt divine ownership. Now Myeol can archive it, remove it, and leave the power intact. A blank miracle can become anything compatible with its structure. Healing, barrier, flame, memory, even resurrection. Muak places the empty brand inside the chest of the collapsed tomb seer. The corpse's ruined eyes do not return. Instead, the authority flows into its skull and forms a crown of narrow black needles. The dead scout rises. Its perception no longer depends on sight. It feels every grave, sealed chamber, and buried identity across 3,000 steps. A new captain stands before the army. Myeol lands on its crown. The creature taps one needle with a claw. The captain bows lower. That is not obedience to Muak. It is obedience to Myeol. The Grave Archivist has created its first subordinate. Companion evolution begins affecting the command structure, exactly as it should. Cheon Muak looks across the rebuilt prison. 3,000 dead workers, more than 2,000 preserved soldiers, 15 miracle-bearing officers, 7 secured levels, 1 marked route into the Celestial Synod. And beneath everything, an unnamed entity pressing against a gate made from stolen identities. The world above believes the sepulchre contains an awakening prisoner. The truth is far more brutal. It now contains 2. Muak raises the black tablet taken from the funeral guard. Myeol touches it. The creature extracts another hidden memory. A prison warden kneels before the 9th god 3,000 years ago. Behind the deity stands the same 10th shadow. The warden asks why Cheon Muak's coffin must remain sealed after so many ages. The 9th god answers with a trembling voice. Because while he sleeps, the one below believes he is still dead. The memory ends. Every command line in the nameless domain tightens. Our necromancer finally understands the prison's layered design. The gods did not keep him here because they could not move him. They used his sealed existence as a false corpse, a burial marker. A lie powerful enough to convince the entity below that Cheon Muak had died. His name was erased so it could not call to him. His history was destroyed so it could not locate him. His coffin was placed above the final gate so his death-like presence would keep that thing dormant. The 9 gods did not merely imprison their greatest enemy, they turned him into a lock. Muak looks toward the ceiling, then toward the depths. Neither side understands what has changed. The lock is awake. And instead of choosing one prison wall to break, Cheon Muak begins connecting them. He orders the corpse scribes to copy the gate's identity pattern. He commands the boundary officers to build 9 false entrances. He sends blank divine brands into every secured level. Then our necromancer places the marked sun shard signal at the center of the formation. When the synod brings the ossuary ledger to examine him, they will not find one hidden domain. They will find 9. 8 will contain carefully arranged fragments of stolen necromancy. 1 will lead toward the final gate. The enemy believes it is preparing an investigation. Cheon Muak is preparing a choice. Either the gods expose what they buried beneath him, or they enter the wrong grave and strengthen it themselves. Myeol lands on his shoulder. Its 4 wings fold. 1 pupil watches heaven. 1 watches the prison. The final pupil watches Muak. The dark sorcerer removes the 6th spear from his body and hands it to the Grave Archivist. Black blood pours across the newly restored floor. Myeol wraps the divine weapon in stolen names. Cheon Muak points toward the first false gate. Thousands of corpses begin carving. The Celestial Synod opens the ossuary ledger beneath 9 tolling bells, and every corpse inside Cheon Muak's prison lifts its head. The sound does not travel through air, it moves through stolen necromancy. Across the eastern continent, temple vaults unlock one after another, chains loosen around forbidden grimoires. Sealed coffins rise from underground archives. Relics taken from extinct death sects begin trembling inside boxes that have not seen daylight for 30,000 years. Deep beneath all of it, Cheon Muak feels his own history waking up in other people's hands. The gods erase his name. Their priests keep his techniques. Honestly, hypocrisy survives every apocalypse. Our necromancer stands before the 9 false gates, while corpse scribes complete the final inscriptions. 6 divine spears remain inside his body. Every breath opens old wounds, and black blood runs steadily into channels carved across the floor. That blood becomes part of the formation. Nothing is wasted. Myeol moves from gate to gate, 4 wings leaving thin strips of darkness in the air. The grave archivist places stolen names inside each entrance, adjusting the identities until every false domain feels ancient, dangerous, and slightly different. The first gate carries the remains of a plague necromancer. The second imitates a forgotten royal tomb. The third contains traces of battlefield resurrection. The fourth reeks of demonic possession. The fifth resembles a divine burial chamber corrupted from within. The remaining entrances hold carefully mixed fragments taken from the silent funeral guard, the dead raiders, and the synod's consecrated knights. None of them leads to Muak, not directly. Each one is a story the enemy already understands. That makes them believable. The ninth gate is different. It carries almost no necromantic residue. Only one thin line of divine authority runs across its center. The mark belongs to the fifth god. Yun Sorye will notice it. She will believe someone inside the prison is trying to hide a memory. She will be correct, just not in the way she expects. Cheon Muak presses his palm against the final inscription. The 9 gates synchronize. A cold pulse moves through the sepulchre. False territory stabilized, divine investigation routes prepared, external entry points awaiting recognized authority. The trap can now accept guests. Mio lands on Muak's wrist. One parchment wing twitches. Then it twitches again. The foreign names stored inside the creature have begun moving without permission. Tiny letters crawl beneath its bone plating, gathering near the base of the third eye. Our dark sorcerer watches carefully. The evolution is not complete. Mayol can erase ownership from divine brands. It can store identities. It can remove itself from captured memories. But every archived name leaves an imprint. Too many imprints, and the creature may forget which identity is its own. Muak places 2 fingers against its skull. The grave archivist immediately bites him. Not hard this time, a warning. The little monster does not want help. Our hero ignores the attitude and examines it anyway. Beneath Mayol's third eye, one name appears more often than the others, Baek Guryong. The dead archbishop's identity has not been fully digested. It is trying to rebuild itself through the vessel. That is dangerous. It is also useful. Muak reaches into his shadow. A massive hand emerges first, then a shoulder, then the bowed head of Baek Guryong's preserved corpse. The former archbishop no longer carries living warmth, but his body remains terrifyingly powerful. Black boundary rings rotate behind him, golden cracks run across his skin. The divine authority stripped from his soul now circulates through dead channels reconstructed by the nameless domain. Baek Guryong kneels. Mayol's wings spread. The name inside the creature reacts to the corpse. For one savage heartbeat, the dead archbishop raises his head without Muak's command. His eyes turn gold. A fragment of the original man surfaces. Monster. The word comes out broken. Mayol shrieks. Stored names erupt from its wings. The false gates flicker. Several corpse scribes collapse as foreign memories tear through the command network. Cheon Muak moves instantly. He catches Mayol with one hand and grabs Guryong's skull with the other. The archbishop's identity pulls in both directions. One fragment lives inside the corpse. Another remains archived inside the grave archivist. The 2 pieces are trying to reunite. Muak does not destroy them. He separates their functions. The memory stays with Mayol. The authority stays with the corpse. The name itself goes into neither. Our necromancer draws the syllables from both vessels and presses them into a blank divine brand. Baek Guryong's name burns inside the empty symbol. The corpse falls still. Mayol's body stops shaking. The new brand floats between them like a black coin. A quiet readout forms behind Muak's eyes, captured identity converted into command seal, archived memory stabilized, independent corpse authority established. There it is, a new structure. Muak embeds the command seal into Guryong's sternum. The dead archbishop rises again. This time, no fragment of the original man surfaces. He turns toward the 9 gates and waits. Mayol circles him once. Then the creature lands on his shoulder. Guryong does not react. The grave archivist taps the corpse's head with one claw. Still nothing. Mayol taps harder. The dead archbishop slowly lowers his head. The creature looks absurdly satisfied. Our dark sorcerer says nothing. But he remembers. Mayol is no longer simply surviving evolution. It is learning to command identities outside Muak's direct control. When that ability matures, the nameless domain will no longer depend entirely on his consciousness. That day has not arrived. The sign is clear. Above the prison, the Synod gathers its greatest necromantic collection inside the Basilica of Returning Light. The structure sits in the heart of Tianseong, a sacred city built across 7 artificial mountains. White bridges connect towers wrapped in divine chains. Pilgrims fill every street. Priests line the roads wearing ceremonial masks. At the city center, 9 colossal statues face an open plaza. Each statue represents one god. The pedestal beneath the 9th remains cracked. Official records claim lightning causes the damage. No one mentions the scream that travels through heaven when Muak pierces the deity's gaze. Today, the synod hides fear beneath celebration. They call the event the Purification Convocation. Thousands attend. Cardinals march beneath banners. Consecrated knights drag chained coffins through the streets. Temple choirs sing about the victory of divine order over death. The public sees a holy festival. The inner council sees something else, an emergency mobilization. Sion Jaryok kneels inside a glass cage at the center of the procession. The false blessing above his heart glows brightly enough for everyone to see. Priests call it proof that heaven saves loyal servants from corruption. Behind the spectacle, 3 inquisitors watch every breath he takes. Jaryok understands his role. He is bait. What he does not understand is that he is carrying bait of his own. The sun shard remains beneath his skin. Cheon Muak feels every step through it. The high examiner looks thinner now. His noble posture has collapsed. Bruises cover his wrists, yet something harder has replaced the arrogance in his eyes. He has begun observing the synod, the way Muak observes a battlefield. Who speaks? Who lies? Who avoids the ninth god statue? Who touches the glass cage before asking questions? Our necromancer notices the change. Fear is teaching Jaryok faster than faith ever did. The procession reaches the basilica. Yeon Sorye waits at the entrance. She wears no ceremonial mask. Her staff has been replaced. The original remains under divine examination after carrying a memory that somehow loses its most important subject. The new staff is made from translucent bone and contains 7 sealed eyes. Each eye belongs to a dead memory priest. Miol recoils when the image reaches the nameless domain. Those eyes can compare recollections between multiple dead minds. Removing one memory will no longer be enough. The 5th god is adapting. Good. A predictable enemy is convenient. An adapting enemy reveals more. Yeon Sorye approaches Jaryok's cage. She places one hand against the glass. Did he speak his name? The examiner looks at her. No. Did anything near him possess one? Jaryok remembers the bone moth whispering Muak. His false memories try to cover the moment. The real recollection remains beneath them. He pauses too long. Sorye notices. So does Cheon Muak. Jaryok lowers his eyes. There was a sound. What sound? I do not know. That is his first deliberate lie to the synod. Deep underground, the marked shard warms. Our necromancer files the decision away. Yen Sorye continues watching him. She does not expose the lie. Instead, she orders the cage brought inside. Suspicion has entered the enemy formation. Exactly on schedule. The ossuary ledger waits beneath the basilica. It is not a book. It is a city of shelves descending through 21 underground levels. Each level contains stolen death arts from a different age. Coffins serve as memory vaults. Preserved skulls whisper techniques into recording crystals. Black weapons hang inside circles of holy flame. At the lowest level rests the central index. A corpse with no skin sits on a throne of iron pages. Hundreds of silver needles pierce its brain. The synod calls it the curator. Once, it is a necromancer who can identify any technique by examining a single corpse. Now the priests use what remains of him as a search engine. The curator opens its mouth when the sun shard enters the archive. Every coffin in the ossuary ledger begins knocking from within. Muak hears all of them. Myol spreads its wings. The grave archivist's 3 pupils widen as thousands of stolen names enter its detection range through the marked shard. Too many. The creature drops from Guryong's shoulder. Cheon Muak catches it before it reaches the floor. Its body burns against his palm. Names flow through the connection in waves. Dead sorcerers, executed sect masters, children born with forbidden classes, kings who try to resurrect their armies. Most of them have nothing to do with Muak. Some do. One shelf contains fragments of his Black River method. Another holds a degraded version of the Thousand Grave Command. A third stores the skull of someone who learns from one of his disciples. The lineage continues for tens of thousands of years after his erasure, distorted, broken, rebranded as heresy, but alive. Myol absorbs every connection. A thin crown begins forming above its third eye. Not solid, only a ring of floating letters. Cheon Muak closes his fingers around the creature. Enough. Myol's wings beat furiously. It wants more. That hunger is new and dangerous. The grave archivist no longer consumes names only to survive. It desires them. Muak pulls its attention away from the archive and places the black tablet from the funeral guard beneath its claws. The hidden warning appears. The seal was not built to keep the prisoner inside. Myol focuses on the sentence. Its crown stabilizes. The dark sorcerer does not comfort the creature. He gives it a task. That works better. Inside the basilica, the curator identifies the necromantic residue on the sun shard. Its jaw stretches open. Needles inside its brain begin glowing. The grave pattern belongs to no registered founder. Cardinals exchange looks. Yeon Sorye steps closer. Compare structural elements. The curator's fingers dig into the iron pages beneath it. Shelves begin moving. Relics rise from sealed chambers. Techniques gathered across 30,000 years assemble around the shard. The trap deepens exactly as Muak intends. Every artifact touches the marked fragment. Every corpse contributes memory. Every divine ward opens itself to examine the threat. The nameless domain receives a flood of structures, weaknesses, and ownership patterns. Muak stands at the center of the 9 false gates. Black inscriptions appear across each one. The first opens a narrow connection to a shelf of plague relics. The second reaches a royal burial archive. The third touches a chamber full of battlefield corpses. One by one, the Synod's own investigation links the ossuary ledger to the false domains beneath the sepulchre. The enemy believes it is tracing him. It is building roads into his territory. Baek Guryong raises both hands. The stolen boundary authority locks the connections in place. Corpse scribes copy every incoming technique. Purification captains strip surveillance prayers from the flow. Miol archives the names attached to each relic. The scale becomes ridiculous. Hundreds of forbidden arts, thousands of dead identities. Enough divine brands to feed the nameless domain for years. Still, Muak does not activate the trap. Not yet. The 5th god has not fully entered the archive. Yeon Sorye walks around the curator's throne. Her 7-eyed staff examines every result. Something bothers her. The traces are too clean. Too organized. 9 different necromantic signatures appear around the shard, yet all of them share the same absence at their center. No founder, no owner, no true name. She looks at Jaryok. This is not residue. The examiner remains silent. Sorye's voice drops. It is an invitation. The archive doors slam shut. Cardinals shout orders. Consecrated barriers rise around the central index. Priests try to remove the sun shard from Jaryok's body. The shard does not move. Black roots have grown from it into his ribs. Jaryok screams. The false blessing above his heart flickers. For one moment, the Synod sees the silver corruption hidden beneath the gold. Every weapon turns toward him. The High Examiner finally understands the full shape of Muak's gift. He was never released. He was planted. Sorye points her staff at his chest. Who marked you? Jaryok looks past her. At the curator. At the coffins. At the divine relics surrounding the shard. Then he starts laughing. It is not brave laughter. It is exhausted, bitter, almost hysterical. You carried everything here yourselves. The accusation silences the room. Deep below, Cheon Muak watches through the mark. Jaryok has seen the trap. The enemy sees it too. But realization arrives after investment. The ossuary ledger is open. The relics are gathered. The pathways are locked. And the 5th god's attention is already descending through Yeon Sorye's staff. Divine light fills all 7 eyes. The memory archbishop rises from the floor. Her body straightens. Her voice changes. Show yourself. The 5th god speaks through her. The 6 spears inside Muak ignite. Miol's unfinished crown turns toward the 9th gate. The final gate does not lead to the ossuary ledger. It leads below. Toward the thing, calling him king. Our necromancer places one hand on Baek Guryong's shoulder. The dead archbishop's boundary rings expand. 5 false gates open wider. 3 remain narrow. The 9th stays closed. Muak is not choosing which entrance to reveal yet. He is waiting to see which one heaven fears most. The 5th god sends memory authority through every connection at once. Visions tear across the sepulchre. Ancient battles. Burning sects. Executed necromancers. The stolen history of death magic unfolds across the walls. Miol screams beneath the pressure. Its floating crown fractures into dozens of letters. One letter refuses to fall. It hangs above the creature's 3rd eye. A command character. Archive. The first unmistakable sign of its next evolution. Cheon Muak steadies the grave archivist with one hand. With the other, he touches the formation. The entire prison waits. The Synod waits. The thing beneath the final gate stops knocking. For a single heartbeat, absolutely nothing moves. Then one blank divine brand inside the 9th gate turns black. A tiny click follows, barely audible. Cheon Muak smiles. Every piece is now in position. The tiny click inside the 9th gate is the sound of heaven making the wrong choice. For 5 full breaths, the 5th god says nothing through Yeon Sorye's body. The celestial synod freezes around the ossuary ledger. Cardinals hold purification seals half raised. Consecrated knights surround Sion Jaryok's glass cage. The curator remains hunched over its throne while thousands of silver needles burn inside its exposed brain. Deep beneath them, Cheon Muak waits before 9 artificial graves. 8 are bait. One leads toward the nameless thing below his prison. The gods know which one. That is precisely why our Necromancer opens it first. Baek-guryong's dead body spreads both arms, black boundary rings roar outward, the ninth gate splits down the center. No darkness pours through, no monstrous hand appears. Instead, a single breath escapes the opening. The air crosses the sepulchre, enters the divine pathways built by the Synod, and reaches the lowest level of the ossuary ledger. Every flame in the archive goes out, the curator lifts its head. The dead necromancer begins laughing. Not loudly, not sanely. Its skinless face twists while broken teeth grind against one another. Found. One word. That is enough. The fifth god immediately tries to sever the connection. Memory authority crashes backward through Yeon Sore's staff. The 7 preserved eyes rupture one after another. Divine light pulls away from the false gates, abandoning relics, corpses, and priests alike. Muak moves at the exact moment heaven retreats. His hand closes. Baek-guryong's boundary rings reverse. The pathways lock. The fifth god's consciousness stops halfway between the basilica and the sepulchre. A fragment of divine presence remains trapped inside Yeon Sore. Another remains trapped inside the 9-gate formation. The rest recoils toward heaven. For the first time, a god is caught on both sides of a closing door. Yeon Sore screams. Silver cracks spread across her face. Memories pour from her mouth as strips of pale light childhood prayers, ordination rites, executions performed in sealed chambers, conversations with cardinals who no longer remember speaking. Mayo launches from Muak's shoulder. Its 4 wings unfold to their full span. The broken crown above its third eye forms again, letter by letter. Archive. The grave archivist flies into the stream. It does not consume the memories, not blindly. It sorts them. Names move to one wing. Locations move to another. Divine commands spiral around the bone plating on its back. Secrets connected to the fifth god gather beneath its third eye. The sheer volume should tear the creature apart. Its body cracks anyway. Black light leaks through the fractures. Muak raises one hand. The nameless domain tightens around Mayal, supporting the companion without taking control away from it. That distinction matters. Mayal chooses what to preserve. It rejects prayers. It discards ceremonial language. It keeps fear. Thousands of years of divine fear. The creature sees the fifth god visiting the sepulchre in secret. It sees the gods stand before Cheon Muak's coffin while the other 8 remain absent. It sees the same 10th shadow waiting behind the final gate. And it sees the fifth god remove one memory from Muak before the sealing ends. Not a battle technique, not a weakness. A promise. Mayal turns sharply. The stolen memory flies toward Muak. It enters his forehead like a blade. The battlefield returns. 9 gods surround him beneath a sky split open by dead stars. Cheon Muak stands on a mountain of celestial corpses, one hand around the 9th god's throat and the other holding a black flame above his palm. The 10th shadow watches from beyond creation. It speaks without sound. Open the road, and the dead will never kneel again. Muak answers, not with submission, not with gratitude. With a condition, no throne, no master, no god above the grave. The shadow accepts. The memory ends before the promise is fulfilled. Our necromancer opens his eyes. Now he understands why the fifth god steals that moment. The 9 gods do not fear only Muak's strength. They fear an agreement. A road between death and something older than heaven. The thing below does not call him king because it rules him. It calls him king because he once refuses to become its servant. That changes everything. The final gate shakes. A black finger pushes through the narrow opening. Then another. The compressed identities forming the barrier begin screaming. Inside the basilica, the Synod finally sees what its investigation has reached. The central floor turns transparent. Beneath the curator's throne appears an inverted sky filled with sealed eyes. A colossal hand presses against the other side. Cardinals fall backward. Knights abandon formation. One relic bearer starts praying so fast the words become meaningless. The fifth god's trapped fragment forces Yeon Sore upright. Close it. The divine voice carries no authority now, only panic. Cheon Muak hears the command through every connected relic. He lifts one eyebrow. The gods imprison him for almost 100,000 years, steal his name, steal his history, and use his body as a lock. Now one of them asks him to repair the door. The audacity is almost beautiful. Muak places his palm against the formation. Return what was taken. The fifth god falls silent. Myeol hovers beside him, fractured body wrapped in stolen memories. The divine fragment tries to pull away again. Baek-guryong's corpse crushes the pathway narrower. The god cannot escape. Close the gate. Muak's expression does not change. Return it. A violent pulse tears through Yeon Sore. The archbishop's back arches. The 7 dead eyes in her staff reopen despite being ruptured. Each one projects an ancient scene into the archive. A mountain drowned in black rain. A a celestial army walking backward into death. A man standing before 9 kneeling gods. The priests of the synod stare at a history their religion erases. Cheon Muak appears in every vision, not as a nameless prisoner, as the one who almost wins. His erased name trembles across the divine fragment. The 5th god tries to suppress it. Meol attacks. The grave archivist crosses the distance between worlds through a thread of memory. Its 4 wings become streaks of black parchment. The unfinished crown rotates once. Every stolen name inside the ossuary ledger answers. Forbidden sorcerers. Executed children. Forgotten sect masters. Thousands of identities ripped from history by the synod. Meol opens its mouth. The names do not enter the creature. They enter the 5th god's memory authority. The divine fragment becomes overloaded with the very people it helped erase. Voices erupt inside Yeon Sorye, not pleas. Records, dates, places. Methods of execution, orders carrying divine signatures. The synod's hidden history writes itself across the basilica walls. Pilgrims in the upper city see the first lines appear through white marble. Cardinals scream for the wards to activate. The wards recognize the memories as divine. They refuse to erase them. That is the payoff Cheon Muak prepares from the moment he plants the coffin shard inside Sion Jaryok. The shard does not merely mark a location. It convinces every synod defense that the incoming corruption belongs to heaven. The false blessing inside Jaryok opens the first door. The collected relics open the second. The 5th, God's own presence, opens the last. Every security layer now protects Muak's invasion. Our necromancer closes his fist. The nameless muster erupts across Tianxiang. Not hundreds this time, thousands. Every corpse stored inside the ossuary ledger leaves behind an identityless command imprint. Shadows peel away from coffins, shelves, execution relics, and preserved bones. They rise throughout 21 underground levels. Dead silhouettes wearing the shapes of forgotten eras. Some carry swords, some hold staffs. Some have no weapons at all. Each receives the same order, open. Shadow hands pull archive doors apart. Shadow blades cut divine chains. Shadow priests reverse purification circles. The synod's stolen dead begin dismantling their own prison. Consecrated knights rush into the lower levels. They receive the first wave head-on. Golden spears tear through shadows. Purification light destroys entire ranks. For every imprint erased, 2 more rise from unopened chambers. The ossuary ledger contains 30,000 years of death. 9 minutes is more than enough. Cheon Muak watches the resistance through the marked shard. He reads the knight's formation. Front shields carry solar authority. Rear lines channel memory anchors. Relic bearers maintain the barriers. A familiar pattern. Take the first blow. Measure the mechanism. Break the weakest link. Our dark sorcerer sends the nameless muster directly into the shields. Hundreds disappear under golden light. The synod soldiers cheer too early. The shadows are not trying to survive. They are covering the floor. Black residue gathers beneath the relic bearers. Meol's third eye turns. The creature identifies every buried name inside the relics they carry. Muak speaks those names through the domain. The relics hesitate. 1 heartbeat. That is all the shadows need. They rise behind the support line. Black blades cut through the branded channels in 12 relic bearers' spines. The defensive network collapses. Baek Guryong's boundary authority enters the basilica. Walls of black light slam down around separate squads, dividing the knights exactly as their former archbishop once divided Muak's army. Living soldiers find themselves trapped with the corpses they were ordered to guard. The dead rise. Not all of them. Only those touched by the nameless muster before death. The technique has grown since the first battle. A shadow imprint now serves as a seed. When a living enemy kills it at close range, the imprint marks the attacker's identity. The moment that attacker dies, the nameless domain claims the corpse through the connected pathway. The synod does not realize the rule until their own front line turns around. Freshly dead knights drive golden spears through their commanders. Purification flames burn priests. Boundary barriers crush escape routes. The basilica shakes from foundation to highest tower. Citizens flood the streets. 9 divine statues begin bleeding black water from their eyes. The erased history projected across the walls reaches the public square. People see temples burning villages labeled heretical. They see children stripped of names before execution. They see the silent funeral guard created from prisoners who once opposed divine rule. Then they see Cheon Muak. The dark sorcerer stands before 9 gods. His face remains hidden behind damaged memory. His name does not appear, but his existence can no longer be denied. Inside the central archive, Yeon Sorye fights for control of her own body. One hand grips the staff. The other reaches towards Sion Jaryok's cage. The 5th god tries to use her to kill him. Jaryok carries the marked shard. Destroying him may collapse the entire pathway. The High Examiner sees the staff coming. He cannot move. Silver chains lock his wrists and ankles. Sorya's face twists. Run. The word belongs to her. The divine hand continues descending. Jaryok closes his eyes. Then the curator moves. The skinless corpse tears 300 needles from its own brain and drives them through Yon Sorye's arm. The staff misses the cage. Everyone turns. The curator rises from the Iron Throne. For 30,000 years, it identifies stolen techniques for the Synod. Now the nameless muster covers its shadow. Muak does not fully control the ancient Necromancer. The curator possesses too much preserved will. He does not need to. He offers one command. Remember, the corpse obeys. Its mouth opens. Cheon. The fifth god screams through Yon Sorye. Divine memory authority crashes into the curator, trying to erase the sound. Mayol dives into the conflict. Its unfinished crown breaks apart completely. The floating letters penetrate the seven-eyed staff. Archive. The word becomes an action. Every memory inside the divine fragment stops moving. The fifth god loses the ability to erase, alter, or retrieve them. For 3 breaths, heaven's authority becomes a sealed record inside Mayol. The grave archivist's body expands. 4 wings become 8. A ring of black pages forms behind its skull. Thousands of names orbit the creature in perfect silence. This is not the final evolution. The new form cannot stabilize. Cracks race across every wing. The ring of pages begins collapsing. Still, Mayol has reached the threshold. It holds a god's memory still. Cheon Muak uses the opening. He reaches through the 9th gate pathway, through the Synod archive, and into Yon Sorye's chest. His physical hand never leaves the sepulchre. His shadow does. Black fingers emerge from the archbishop's back. They close around the fifth god's trapped fragment. Divine light burns them apart. More fingers replace them. The nameless muster sacrifices hundreds of shadows to form one massive arm across the connection. Every destroyed imprint adds another layer. The hand becomes solid. Muak pulls. A sphere of pale light tears out of Yon Sorye. Inside it swirl countless stolen memories. His erased techniques. His battle with the gods. His promise to the thing below. And one final image, the fifth god desperately tries to hide. The 9 gods kneel before a throne of empty space. They are not rulers. They are wardens. Something above them issues commands. Something whose face resembles a blank sun. The image lasts less than a second. Mayol archives it. The fifth god's fragment shatters. Heaven recoils. Every divine statue in Tianxiang cracks. Yon Sorye collapses. The hand beneath the final gate stops pushing. Not because it loses interest, because it recognizes the memory Muak recovered. A voice travels through the 9th pathway. The false gods still serve the empty crown. The words reach the basilica. Every cardinal hears them. So do the surviving knights. So does Seon Jaryok. Faith breaks differently in every face. Some priests deny it instantly. Some stare at the cracked statues. Some kneel because they no longer know where else to stand. The highest cardinal raises a golden seal. Destroy the archive. There it is. The Synod cannot control the truth. So it chooses fire. Purification formations ignite across all 21 levels. The ossuary ledger begins burning from the outside inward. Relics melt. Coffins collapse. Preserved corpses turn to ash. Muak anticipated theft. He anticipated resistance. He did not anticipate the Synod destroying 30,000 years of accumulated power in one move. The timeline shifts again. Our necromancer recalculates. Saving every relic is impossible. Preserving the pathway risks Mayol's destruction. Maintaining the 9th gate risks releasing the thing below before he understands the empty crown. 3 valuable outcomes. Only one can survive. Cheon Muak chooses without hesitation. Mayol. The grave archivist turns toward him from across the divine connection. Its temporary 8-winged form is breaking apart. Muak points toward the archive. Take the names. Not the techniques. Not the relics. The people. Mayol screams once. Every black page behind its skull opens. Names tear free from burning coffins and collapsing walls. Tens of thousands cross the pathway as silver-black streams. The creature cannot hold them all, so it does something Muak never teaches it. It distributes them. Across the sepulchre, corpse scribes raise blank tablets. Funeral guards open empty command seals. Miracle-bearing officers expose the hollow spaces inside stolen brands. Mayol archives identities throughout the entire domain. 1 name per tablet, 1 memory per corpse, 1 record per brand. The companion transforms Muak's army into a living library of the dead. That is its decisive action. That is the ability foreshadowed by every stolen name it has carried. And that is why the Synod's fire fails. Bodies burn. Records survive. The ossuary ledger collapses. The curator pushes Jaryok's cage toward the last open pathway. Yeon Sori lies beside it, barely conscious. Jaryok reaches through the broken glass. He grabs her robe. For 1 second, the examiner considers leaving her. Muak watches. Jaryok pulls her into the cage instead. Interesting. The curator shoves both of them through the marked shard's connection. Space folds. The glass cage disappears from the burning basilica. It reappears before the 9 false gates. Sion Jaryok hits the prison floor first. Yeon Sorye lands beside him. The curator remains behind. Flames consume its legs. The ancient corpse looks through the collapsing pathway toward Cheon Muak. Its jaw moves. Cheon Muak. The full name finally crosses the archive. Myol catches it. The creature's breaking form compresses instantly. 8 wings fold into 4. The ring of pages collapses into a small black crown fused above its third eye. All foreign names become silent. For the first time, Myol speaks clearly. Cheon Muak. The pathway closes. The ossuary ledger explodes. A column of black fire rises through Tianxiong, splitting the basilica from underground vault to highest tower. Divine statues fall into the plaza. White bridges collapse between the artificial mountains. Yet the city does not become a grave. Muak redirects Bet Guryong's boundary authority at the final moment, forcing the blast upward instead of outward. Pilgrims survive. Most priests survive. The archive does not. By sunset, the Celestial Synod loses 30,000 years of stolen necromancy, 1 archbishop, 1 high examiner, and the certainty that the 9 gods stand at the top of creation. Deep inside the sepulchre, thousands of black tablets glow across 7 prison levels. The dead have names again. Myo lands on Cheon Muak's shoulder. Its body is smaller than before, cracked, exhausted, but the black crown above its third eye remains solid. The grave archivist looks toward the final gate. The thing below speaks one last time. The road is open. Muak studies the 6 spears still buried inside his body. Then he looks at Yeon Sorye and Sion Jaryok lying before his army. One carries the memories of a god. The other carries the first deliberate betrayal of heaven. Our necromancer raises the sphere torn from the 5th god. Inside it, the empty crown turns its faceless gaze toward him. For almost 100,000 years, Cheon Muak believes the 9 gods are his final enemies. Now he sees the chains above their thrones. And somewhere beyond heaven, the real jailer realizes its lock has just broken. The empty crown opens 1 eye above heaven, and every divine brand in the world begins burning at once. Priests collapse inside temples. Consecrated knights scream beneath their armor. Children carrying minor blessings claw at symbols branded into their skin. Across the eastern continent, borrowed miracles reverse direction and rip power back toward the sky. The 9 gods are gathering everything, not to defend their followers, to rebuild the prison around Cheon Muak. Deep inside the abyssal sepulchre, the sphere stolen from the 5th god explodes between his fingers. Pale memory light floods the chamber. The 6 spears still buried inside our necromancer answer with absolutely savage force. Their inscriptions spread from metal into flesh, carving divine commandments across his bones. Prisoner identified. Name recovery detected. Original sentence reinstated. Chains erupt from the walls. They pierce corpse soldiers, command officers, black tablets, and every blank miracle stored throughout the 7 secured levels. The entire nameless domain is nailed in place. Then the final gate opens. No hand reaches through this time. The sky beneath the prison simply rises. Inverted stars swallow the lower chambers. Massive ribs of unknown creatures emerge from the darkness. Between them hangs an empty throne shaped like a sun with its center torn out. The 10th shadow stands before it. Its body has no fixed form. One moment, it resembles a crowned man. The next, it becomes a woman covered in white veils. Then it stretches into something tall enough to hold worlds between its fingers. Above its head floats the empty crown. Meet the ruler. The 9 gods themselves kneel to the hidden jailer who turns divine beings into wardens and entire histories into locks. The shadow looks at Cheon Muak. You open the road. Its voice travels through every stolen name in the prison. Black tablets crack. Preserved identities begin bleeding from the stone. Miol spreads 4 wings and places itself between the voice and Muak. The small black crown above its third eye trembles. The empty crown notices the creature. A container wearing scraps. Miol bares its tiny teeth. The shadow lifts one finger. The companion explodes against the wall. Bone plates shatter. One parchment wing tears completely away. The grave archivist hits the floor and does not rise. Cheon Muak's expression becomes still, not calm, still. There is a difference. The final gate opens wider. 9 pillars of divine light descend through the sepulchre. Each one carries a god. The 3rd arrives wrapped in sacred flame. The 5th appears behind a veil of pale pages. The 7th carries rings large enough to divide continents. The ninth descends last, its colossal eye surrounded by broken wings that never fully healed after the ancient battle. The remaining 5 take shapes built from storms, blades, beasts, stars, and golden blood. None look triumphant. Every last one of them looks terrified. Not of Muak, of the throne below. The empty crown points toward him. Complete the sentence. The 9 gods attack. Sacred fire fills 7 prison levels. Boundary rings cut through the silent funeral guard. Memory authority tears names from black tablets. A divine storm pulverizes corpse officers faster than the nameless domain can rebuild them. The first wave destroys more than 1,000 soldiers. The second collapses 3 secured levels. The third reaches Muak. He raises Baek Guryong's corpse as a shield. 9 divine attacks strike at once. The dead archbishop lasts less than a heartbeat. His black rings shatter. His body becomes ash. The impact throws Cheon Muak through the false gates and into the chamber above the final seal. 3 spears inside him punch completely through his back. His left arm tears away at the shoulder. The nameless domain contracts from 3,000 steps to less than 100. Honestly, this is where it gets brutally unfair. Our dark sorcerer is not fighting 9 gods at full strength. He is fighting 9 gods carrying power drained from every worshipper across the continent. And behind them sits the authority that owns the gods themselves. The third god enters the broken chamber. Sacred fire burns around a humanoid body made from molten gold. You should have remained forgotten. Muak pushes himself upright with one arm. Black blood pools beneath him. The 9th god's eye appears overhead. Recognition finally fills its trembling iris. Cheon Muak. There it is. Almost 100,000 years of erasure, and heaven speaks his name only when it needs him chained again. The 6th god drives a blade of compressed starlight through Muak's abdomen. The necromancer is pinned to the floor. The 7th closes 6 boundary rings around his limbs. The 5th reaches into his mind and begins removing the memories Mayal recovered. One promise disappears, then one battlefield. Then the image of the empty crown. The gods are not simply defeating him, they are rebuilding the nameless prisoner they once created. Mayal moves. One broken claw scratches against the floor. The grave archivist drags itself toward Muak while foreign names pour from cracks in its body. Its crown hangs sideways. 3 pupils flicker inside the damaged eye. The empty crown looks down. Discard it. A chain falls from the throne. It pierces Miol through the spine. The companion convulses. Every stored identity erupts from its wings. Thousands of names spiral toward the empty crown, returning to the authority that first removes them from creation. Mayal tries to hold them. Its remaining wings split. Muak watches in silence. The gods assume he is finished. That is their mistake. Pain does not make him blind. It makes the pattern clearer. The 3rd god's flame enters through a chain connected to the empty crown. The 5th god's memory authority does the same. Every boundary ring, divine blade, celestial storm, and sacred beast carries a thin white thread leading back to the empty throne. The 9 gods are no different from the priests serving them. Humanity rents miracles from heaven. Heaven rents divinity from the empty crown, a hierarchy of borrowed power, and borrowed power has one absolute weakness. Ownership can be severed. Cheon Muak stops resisting. The gods tighten the prison. More chains enter his body. The nameless domain shrinks to 33 steps, the exact radius it holds when the first corpse rises beside his coffin. The 9th god descends closer. Its broken wings surround the chamber. You nearly destroyed heaven once. Muak lowers his head. The deity mistakes the movement for defeat. Then our necromancer closes his remaining hand around a shadow. Not his own. Mayol's. The companion has left a black imprint beneath every name it archives. It does so inside the ossuary ledger. It does so across the sepulchre. It does so when the archive distributes identities into thousands of corpses and tablets. And now those marks exist inside the empty crown's chains. The nameless muster activates, not across one battlefield. Across every stolen identity touching the throne, shadow hands emerge from the chains, millions of them. Some belong to forgotten kings, some belong to erased children, some belong to extinct gods. Every name the empty crown has ever removed leaves behind an identityless command imprint. For 9 minutes, they receive one final order. Remember, the empty throne shudders. The 10th shadow turns. That is the first genuine reaction it shows. Names begin appearing across its body. Too many to count. Every identity it steals has been stored within its authority. Every erased existence becomes a weakness from the inside. The 5th god's concentration breaks. Muak's memories stop disappearing. The 7th god's rings flicker. Sacred fire recoils into the 3rd. Our sorcerer tears his remaining arm free from the boundary field. Flesh strips from the bone. He reaches toward Miol. The grave archivist hangs from the throne's chain, body collapsing beneath the pressure of countless returning names. It can release them. That would save itself. It refuses. The companion looks at Muak with 3 fading pupils. Cheon Muak. The dark sorcerer's face changes. Only slightly. His usual cold detachment cracks just enough for something older to show beneath it. Not rage over stolen authority. Not pride wounded by the gods. Fear. He is afraid Mayol will disappear carrying the name they rebuild together. Muak grips the chain, piercing the creature. The empty crown tightens it. Bones in his hand break. He holds on. Mayol. The companion's crown flickers. That name is yours. The words are quiet. The entire prison hears them. Keep it. Cheon Muak rips the chain apart. The stolen identities stop flowing toward the empty crown. They turn toward Mayol, not as foreign names seeking a vessel, as records choosing an archivist. Thousands become millions. Black tablets across the prison dissolve into letters. The dead soldiers release the memories stored inside their command seals. Blank miracles open and contribute every identity they have touched. Mayol rises. Its broken body does not grow massive. It becomes precise. The cracked bone shell reforms into smooth black plates covered in silver writing. 4 damaged wings split into 9 long page-like blades, each one carrying the true name of a god. The third eye opens completely. Inside, it rotates an endless archive with no visible center. The small crown above its skull expands into a ring of sealed black books. No foreign name crawls beneath its body anymore. Every identity occupies its own page. Every page remains separate. The grave archivist's evolution finally completes. A thunderous readout crosses Muak's mind. Eternal epitaph manifested, divine names archived, ownership revision, authority unlocked, companion identity permanently stabilized. Mayol looks toward the 9 gods. The page wings open. 9 true names appear. Not titles, not religious names, the identities they possess before kneeling to the empty crown. The gods panic. The 5th attacks first. Memory spears flood the chamber. Mayol turns 1 page. The spears forget their target. The 7th closes every boundary ring. Another page moves. The rings remember the dead artisan who first shapes them and reject their divine owner. The 3rd unleashes enough sacred flame to erase the sepulchre completely. Mayol opens the corresponding record. The fire becomes blank. Raw authority hangs in the air without a god attached to it. Cheon Muak inhales. Every blank miracle enters the nameless domain. His missing arm rebuilds from black flame and white bone. The spears inside his body crack. 1, 2, all 6. Our necromancer rises while divine metal falls around him. The 9 gods retreat together. Too late. Muak expands the nameless domain. 33 steps become 1,000. 1,000 becomes 3,000. Then the domain spreads through every divine thread connecting heaven to the empty crown. The entire celestial system becomes his graveyard. Dead angels rise from forgotten battlefields. Executed heretics emerge as shadows inside temples. Divine beasts buried beneath holy mountains open their eyes. Even shattered stars from the ancient war answer. The nameless muster reaches its ultimate scale. An army no world can count stands across heaven, earth, and the space between them. Every soldier repeats one order: sever. Shadow weapons cut the white threads. The 1st god loses its storm. The 2nd loses its celestial beasts. The 3rd loses sacred flame. The 4th loses the golden blades orbiting its body. One by one, the 9 gods become what their priests are without blessings. Powerful, ancient, terrified, but no longer untouchable. The empty crown rises from its throne. The 10th shadow expands beyond the prison. Its hands surround the sepulchre. A blank sun appears where its face should be. You reject the throne again. Muak steps forward. Black blood still covers him. His restored arm remains skeletal. The nameless domain tears at his soul with every second it stays expanded. He smiles anyway. There was never a throne. The shadow attacks. A beam of white absence descends. It does not burn. It removes. Stone vanishes. Corpses vanish. Entire sections of the nameless domain disappear without leaving shadows behind. Muak receives the strike directly. Half his torso is erased. His army flickers. The empty crown strikes again. Our hero watches. One pulse, then another. Every attack begins with the blank sun expanding. Every erased target leaves a temporary hollow inside the crown's authority. The mechanism must open itself to remove something else. That opening lasts less than a heartbeat. Enough. Muak orders every remaining shadow into one point. The massive army collapses willingly. Millions of imprints become a single black spear, stretching from the sepulchre to the empty throne. The same nameless muster first used by destroyed funeral guards now carries the weight of every dead identity the crown tries to erase. Mayol performs the decisive action. Its 9 wings close around the spear. The eternal epitaph writes one name along the weapon. not the empty crown's true identity. That entity has none. Mayol writes its function. Jailer, a function is not a name, but divine ownership treats it like one. The empty crown becomes identifiable. For the first time, the nameless domain can claim it. The blank sun expands for a third attack. A hollow opens. Cheon Muak drives the shadow spear through it. The weapon enters the crown from inside its own authority. Cracks spread across the faceless sun. The 10th shadow screams with millions of stolen voices. Our necromancer closes his skeletal hand. Total subjugation. The empty crown's shattered authority reverses. White chains become black. The prison sentences written across Muak's bones tear free and wrap around the throne. The jailer is dragged toward the final gate. It claws through worlds. It commands the 9 gods to intervene. Not one moves. Mayol holds their true names open across 9 pages. The gods can either resist and lose those identities forever, or watch their master fall. They choose themselves. Naturally. The empty crown reaches the gate. Its blank face turns toward Muak. You cannot kill what has no name. Cheon Muak looks at Mayol. The eternal epitaph understands. One final page opens. It contains no ancient identity. Only a single record created in the first chamber by a broken bone moth. Unknown impurity. The exact words spoken by the 9th god when it first looks into Muak's coffin. Mayol transfers the label onto the empty crown. The jailer gains a name assigned by its own system. The nameless domain closes. The final gate slams shut around it. Every black chain tightens. The empty crown disappears beneath the inverted sky. Silence crashes across creation. The 9 gods remain in the ruined chamber, stripped of borrowed authority, their true names held by Mayol, their former master sealed beneath the prisoner they use as a lock. The 9th god sinks backward, broken wings dragging across the stone. Its colossal eye fixes on Cheon Muak. Mercy. The same deity once looks at him and sees nothing but contamination. Muak approaches. Mayol lands on his shoulder, 9 page wings folding into a dark mantle behind them. Our necromancer stops before the god. Unknown impurity. The 9th trembles. Cheon Muak reaches into its eye and closes his hand around the original divine core. Now you remember. Above the eastern continent, every statue of the 9 gods bows at once. 9 divine statues bow across the eastern continent, and not one of the 9 gods has the strength to raise its head again. Inside the shattered sepulchre, the 9th god writhes beneath Cheon Muak's hand. Its colossal eye has shrunk to the size of a human skull. Broken wings drag behind it like burned cloth, and the divine core inside its iris pulses against our necromancer's fingers. Mercy. The request echoes through every surviving temple. Priests hear it. Knights hear it. Millions of ordinary believers hear the god they worship begging the nameless prisoner for his life. Cheon Muak pulls the divine core free. The 9th god's body collapses into pale dust. It is not dead. Death would be far too convenient. Mayol opens one of its 9 page wings. The true name of the 9th god appears across the black surface, Taecheon, keeper of the highest gaze. The eternal epitaph closes the page. The name disappears from heaven. Every temple dedicated to the 9th loses its inscriptions. Every prayer written in its honor becomes blank. Priests try to remember the deity they served and find only the image of a terrified eye calling something else impure. Muak looks down at the fading god. Unknown impurity. The exact words strike harder than any weapon. Taecheon's remaining essence is sealed inside the crystal eye once torn from Seonjaryok's forehead. The former highest watcher of heaven becomes a powerless witness trapped inside a mortal relic. He can see everything. He can command nothing. A fitting end for the god who watches history disappear and calls the erased victim contamination. Mayol takes the crystal between 2 claws. The trapped eye trembles. The grave archivist stores it beneath 1 black page. Then the 3rd god attacks. Of course he does. Sacred flame erupts from the molten deity's chest, but the power no longer belongs to him. Mayol has already archived his true name. The divine fire hesitates the instant it leaves his body. Cheon Muak raises his skeletal hand. The flame turns black. The 3rd god stares at the stolen element in absolute disbelief. You should have remained forgotten. Muak repeats the deity's own words without raising his voice. Then he closes his fist. The black fire enters the 3rd god through every crack in his golden body. For almost 100,000 years, sacred flame burns inside Muak's wounds. It keeps the prison sentence active. It scorches his bones whenever he moves. It prevents his body from healing even when no god is watching. Now that same flame recognizes a new target. The 3rd god burns from within. His molten skin hardens into dark metal. His limbs lock. His divine heart becomes a furnace that cannot extinguish itself. Muak does not destroy him. He reshapes him into the central fire of the sepulchre. The god who uses flame to preserve suffering now powers the barriers keeping the empty crown sealed. Every second the jailer pushes against the final gate, the third god burns hotter. Every second he burns hotter, the gate grows stronger. Honestly, immortality becomes a remarkably ugly gift when someone else chooses its purpose. The seventh god tries to flee next. Massive boundary rings split space around his body. One opens toward heaven, another reaches for the western continent. A third attempts to cut the god away from his own true name. Bayek Guryong's empty command seal reacts inside the nameless domain. The former archbishop's stolen authority rises from the ashes. Black circles close around the seventh god's golden ones. Muak walks through the collapsing boundaries. The deity screams as each escape route folds inward. You used my prison as a throne above another prison. Our dark sorcerer places one hand on the largest ring. You may keep it closed. The boundaries compress. The seventh god becomes the new living frame around the final gate. His arms stretch into pillars. His spine becomes the central hinge. His divine rings lock around the empty crown's chains. He feels every strike from below. He cannot open the gate. He cannot leave it. The same law he once uses to trap Muak now defines his entire existence. The fifth god remains silent. Unlike the others, she understands resistance only creates more information for Mayal to archive. Her pale pages gather around her veiled form. Thousands of stolen memories move between them, erased sex, altered wars, fabricated miracles, rewritten executions. She tries to destroy everything at once. Miol appears in front of her. The eternal epitaph's central eye opens. Every stolen memory stops. The fifth god looks at the companion she once dismisses as a container wearing scraps. Her divine veil finally tears. Beneath it is not a face. It is a library of empty shelves. Cheon Muak approaches. Show yourself. The words belong to the god's own command inside the basilica. Now they return as judgment. Miol opens all 9 wings. The erased memories flow back into the fifth god, not as power. As permanent records, every name she removes becomes carved into her empty shelves. Every victim she forces the world to forget gains a voice inside her mind. Every altered history plays without pause. The deity falls beneath the weight of millions of restored lives. Muak gives her one function: record. She becomes the foundation of a new archive beneath Tianxiong. She can never erase another name. She can never close a page. Whenever someone asks what the Celestial Synod did, the fifth god must answer with the complete memory. No divine interpretation. No sacred revision. Just the record. The remaining 5 gods stare at their fallen siblings. None begs yet. That changes when Miol turns the next pages. The first god once commands the storms that destroy provinces, refusing divine taxation. Muak strips the storm authority from his soul and binds it to the dry rivers of those same lands. The deity remains conscious inside the clouds, forced to release rain whenever mortal farmers open the old tax bells. The second breeds celestial beasts by consuming the souls of extinct animals. Mayol restores those stolen species from the god's own body. Horns, wings, claws, and ancient hearts tear free until nothing remains but a fragile human-shaped spirit surrounded by the creatures he treated as materials. The fourth fills the Synod's execution halls with golden blades. Our Necromancer melts those weapons into name tablets for every person they kill. The god's arms become the engraving tools, moving without rest until each victim's identity is restored. The sixth turns fallen stars into spears and helps pin Muak beneath divine law. Cheon Muak removes her celestial core and places it above the sepulchre as a fixed black moon. Its light reveals hidden seals, divine brands, and altered memories across the entire continent. The goddess who weaponizes the stars becomes a beacon, exposing every secret heaven tries to bury. The eighth creates the blood brands, allowing noble families to rent stronger miracles than common worshippers. Muak tears the divine hierarchy from his veins. Every inherited blessing vanishes at once. The god is left mortal, powerless, and aging inside the ruined basilica among the aristocrats who build their status around his favor. 9 gods receive 9 endings. None are equal. None are random. Each one continues inside the machinery built from his own crime. The empty crown hears every judgment from beneath the final gate. It strikes the barrier once. The third god burns. The seventh screams. The gate remains closed. Miol lands on Cheon Muak's shoulder. Its 9 wings fold into layers of black pages. The crown above its third eye has stabilized, but several cracks still cross the bone plating near its spine. The grave archivist turns its central pupil toward him. Cheon Muak. The name now sounds complete. No broken syllables. No borrowed memory. No uncertainty. Our Necromancer touches one finger to Miol's crown. The creature immediately bites him. Some things survive divine evolution completely unchanged. Above them, the world begins losing its miracles. Golden brands fade from human bodies. Temple weapons become ordinary metal. Priests who rely entirely on borrowed authority collapse during their own rituals. Noble families discover their sacred bloodlines are simply blood. Panic spreads, so does freedom. People who spend generations barred from magic begin finding energy inside themselves. Former healers learn their hands, still remember how to close wounds. Knights discover training remains after blessings disappear. Farmers use broken relics as tools. Villages remove divine statues and find ancient wells sealed beneath the pedestals. The end of borrowed power does not destroy humanity. It exposes how much humanity already knows. Tianxiong changes faster than any other city. The Basilica of Returning Light remains split from foundation to tower. Black fire stains the central mountain. Thousands of names cover the white walls where the fifth god's memories become public. Citizens gather in the plaza. Some demand the remaining synod priests be executed. Some demand the temples be burned. Others simply search the walls for relatives history once labels heretics. Cheon Muak does not appear before them as a savior. He has no interest in becoming another god. Instead, Seon Jaryuk walks out of the broken basilica carrying Taechion's crystal eye inside a sealed box. The former High Examiner wears no priestly armor. The false blessing has been removed from his heart, leaving a silver scar across his chest. Beside him walks Yan Sorie. Her seven-eyed staff is gone. Her connection to the fifth god has vanished. She looks painfully mortal, which may be the first honest thing about her in years. The crowd recognizes them. Anger surges. Jaryuk places the sealed eye on the plaza stones. Then he kneels. He does not ask forgiveness. He begins reading names. The first belongs to a child executed for awakening death affinity. The second belongs to a village erased after refusing temple taxes. The third belongs to a necromancer whose skinless corpse becomes the curator. Yang Sore joins him. She supplies dates. Locations. Orders. The confession continues through sunset. No divine power forces them. Muak gives both a choice inside the sepulchre. Leave and preserve the synod's lies. Stay and become corpses. Or return to the world carrying the truth they helped bury. Jaryuk chooses the third path. Sori follows for reasons even she does not fully understand. That does not make them innocent. It makes them useful. The former priests establish the registry of the erased inside the ruined basilica. Every restored identity from Mayol's archive receives a tablet. Families can search records without payment. No priest controls access. No god may alter an entry. At the center of the registry stands the fifth god. Her divine body has become a vast wall of pale stone. Ask a question, and the complete memory appears across its surface. The people stop calling the building a temple. They call it the witness hall. Meanwhile, the abyssal sepulchre rises, not from the ground. Through it, 7 prison levels merge with the foundations beneath Tianxiong. Black corridors connect forgotten graves across the continent. The silent funeral guard restores gates between burial sites. Dead scribes, record identities recovered from abandoned battlefields. The sepulchre becomes a domain recognized by every kingdom. Not a nation, not a religion, a sovereign archive for the dead. No ruler may claim an unnamed corpse while Mayol's pages remain open. No temple may erase an enemy from history. No god may attach ownership to a soul without entering Cheon Muak's domain first. And absolutely no one is stupid enough to test that last rule twice. Our dark sorcerer takes no throne. Instead, he occupies the highest platform of the restored final gate. The structure stands beneath the open sky where the ninth god's statue once towered. Black chains descend through the mountain, connecting the platform to the empty crown's prison. 6 shattered divine spears form the outer pillars. The third god burns beneath them. The 7th holds the gate together. Mayol circles overhead like a small black eclipse. Representatives from kingdoms, sects, surviving temples, and free cities gather below. They arrive expecting a coronation. Muak gives them terms. The dead retain their names. Miracles require consent. History remains open. Anyone attempting to rebuild the synod system joins the archive as evidence. No speech follows. No grand declaration. The terms are carved into black stone by the fourth god's own hands. Every representative signs. Not because Cheon Muak asks politely. Because behind him stand more than 5,000 preserved soldiers, 15 miracle-bearing officers, countless identityless shadows, and a companion carrying the true names of heaven. Still, fear is not the only reason. The new rules work. Villages recover ancestors erased from records. Former heretics reclaim land. Ordinary healers form schools without temple permission. Dead soldiers are returned to families instead of converted into divine resources. The world remains brutal. At least the brutality is no longer disguised as salvation. Night falls over Tiansong. The representatives leave. Sion Jariok delivers the final registry tablet to the platform. His hands shake when he presents it. The stone is blank. Yeon Sorye stands several steps behind him. This is the last missing identity from the divine records. Muak already knows whose name belongs there. Mayol lands on the tablet. Its crown opens. Silver letters appear beneath its claws. Cheon Muak. The name spreads through the witness hall. It enters the restored grave records. It appears across every broken archive that once removes him. Far above, the powerless remnants of heaven are forced to carry it. Far below, the empty crown strikes the gate again. This time, the prison answers with Muak's name. The dark sorcerer lifts the tablet. Almost 100,000 years of erasure ends with a piece of black stone held beneath an open mortal sky. Mayal settles on his shoulder. Cheon Muak places the tablet at the entrance to the sepulchre, where every god, king, corpse, and pilgrim must pass it. Then he looks toward the cracked heavens. Leave it there. The ninth god's trapped eye watches from inside the registry. The fifth records the order. The fourth engraves it. And high above the city that once worships 9 gods, the name Cheon Muak becomes the one inscription heaven can never remove again.